regular Board of Trustees meeting for May 27th, 2025. Will you please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Clerk, will you call the roll?
Mayor Karsbeck. Mayor Pro Tem Murphy.
Here.
Trustee Hardy.
Yes.
Trustee Albrecht.
Here.
Trustee Wing.
Here.
Trustee Ayers.
Here.
Excellent. And we are down one board member just because of a resignation for folks in the audience. Next on our agenda is citizen participation. This is for folks in the audience to speak to items that are not on tonight's agenda. Well, we have a lot for Broadmoor. Attorney Smith, how do we handle the annexation petition comments?
Those aren't appropriate tonight. Those are to be reserved for the public hearing on the annexation.
Okay, and that's for equity, to be fair to the applicant too?
Exactly,
So everything's
and
all-
for all the rest of the public.
Okay.
All the rest of the public that's not here tonight, but would be noticed that there is a public hearing, assuming you adopt the resolution on your agenda.
Okay.
And so it's for all of the rest of the public as well.
Folks, for that are here for Broadmoor, do appreciate you coming in. Your presence is noted. I won't be able to open those up for the sake of just the integrity of the public hearing to the public tonight. We do have some others here. We'll start off with Stacy, is that Glasgow?
Yes.
Welcome. And if you could come over here to this podium, there's a mic up above you. And if you could state your name and address, please. Thank you.
Okay, Stacy Glasgow, 1321 Woodcock Street.
Thank you.
And I am a board member for the HOA for Heron Point, and we've talked with Chris quite a bit here in the past, and there's some concern about the drainage ditch that is south of our neighborhood that's preventing water from flowing out of our pond. And last year, the city charged us $6,000 to drain it because we were concerned about pumping the water out of the pond. There was about 1.5 million gallons of water in that pond. And the problem that we believe anyway, and our engineer agrees, is that no matter what we do, the water's not gonna go anywhere because I have pictures here to show you that the ditch is completely full of water and it has been for months. So any water that goes into our pond is going to go absolutely nowhere. I think that there is some effort to maybe have that ditch lined, a concrete pan put in, but I don't know what the timeline is right now. There's a foot or so or 2 feet of water in that ditch. There's wildlife, there's ducks, there's frogs. It's now become a pond. It's no longer a ditch, it's a pond. And it hasn't changed. I mean, I drive by there every day. I took pictures months ago and it wasn't really raining and it was still completely full. The water's just not going anywhere. So if anybody would like to see the pictures, I have some here that might give you some idea of what we're talking about.
Do you have electronic copies of those by chance?
I can send them to you. I don't have them.
Okay, if you could send those to Administrator Kirk. I don't know if you've already seen those, but.
Not these, I've sent others. So I guess what the HOA would like to know is, what is the plan for this? There's a lot of concern about this affecting property values and stuff like that because the water's not draining. We're also involved in a lawsuit with the builder right now due to a construction defect in the pond, which is related but not really related. So that's kind of where we are. So we're trying to get some answers from the city on, what the plan is, what we can do to help this along. And the other thing that we're concerned about is that we paid, $6,000 last year for the city to do this. We don't really feel that was fair, that we were charged that. And we'd like to see if there's some way to recoup some of that money at least. And then what's gonna happen this year? Our fear is we're gonna be stuck in the same situation, being required by the city to pump water that if the ditch would just allow the water out, we wouldn't have the problem. So we feel like we're stuck in a catch-22 with this thing, right? It's like, what do we do?
All right, thank you very much. I'll turn this over to Administrator Kirk. I don't know if any of the board has any background on this, but I think Administrator Kirk does. Do you know where we're at as far as repairs on this, or?
So it's kind of a complicated issue. I'll try to be brief and happy to answer any questions that we can. Last year, we notified the HOA that we were concerned about the pond backing up and flooding into the road, or some other downstream path. Our crew felt like that was because of poor maintenance of the outlet, or that the outlet wasn't functioning properly. The detention pond and the outlet are the responsibility of the HOA. We asked them a few times to pump it down. They expressed concerns about doing that, and we said, we'll do it, but we're gonna back bill you for the charges. We did end up pumping it, and we pumped it downstream and into that ditch, and it all flowed downstream without backup. This year, our crews have been monitoring it. I know they were out in April, monitoring in one of the rainstorms we had. It appeared that the pond drained, and that the ditch does fill up, and it does hold water. It's almost flat. It's in front of that county subdivision just south of Heron Point, if, just for context, on the west side of Berthoud Parkway. There's not a lot we can do to change grades out there without putting it fully underground. And that may be an option in the relatively near future as Heron Lakes develops farther south. And so the alternative right now is to clear the ditch, line it with concrete, and hope that the water flows a little bit more efficiently, but it's still gonna be very flat, and so it will drain, but it drains slowly. When the last rainstorm happened in April, where crews were out monitoring, and I believe they've been out monitoring over the last few days too. I just don't have any information about what that looks like. The ditch filled up more so than it has been, and then within a day or two, it drained back down to kind of what I would call steady levels. It's not ideal for us to have water in that ditch. It used to be a county roadside ditch. The county modified it when they widened Berthoud Parkway. And then I think our crews at some point in the past did some additional work to it. I don't know, 5 or 6 years ago maybe. And it just has never really flowed well. So Keith, our Public Works Operations Manager, is working on putting together a package out to bid to see what it will cost to line that ditch with concrete. And has been talking with our engineering consultants about whether or not that will appreciably improve the problem, or if it will just continue to flow slowly downstream like it does today.
We do have a full engineering report. I
Mhm.
think you have that, correct?
I do.
So there were several issues itemized in that report. So I don't know if we could address some of those as well. I think the culvert was mentioned in that, needed to be redone, and a couple other things too. So I mean, there's a number of things along with that ditch that
Yeah.
could use some help.
All of that work would get done kind of at the same time, so.
Okay, cool.
It's just hard without any background on this, and I think
Yeah, no,
staff's
totally get it.
got some background. It might be worth following up with that information to you. It sounds like we have some information you don't.
Yeah,
Okay, we'll keep this going, Mr. Glasgow. I really appreciate you showing up, though.
Yeah.
What do they need? Okay, thank you very much.
thank you.
Appreciate it. Okay, let's see here. Mr., is it Joe?
Socek.
The Socek, sorry,
Socek,
that's my
yeah.
fault.
Hello, I'm Joe Socek. I'm a member of Platte Valley Hunter Retriever Club. And I'm here to address, talking about the Jaskowski property,
Do you mind, real quick, just stating your address?
564 Marcelina Drive. It's in Loveland.
Thank you very much.
Yep.
Excellent.
And we had talked back in, I've been to the port committee meetings a number of times, and in March, they elected to bring a proposal to you to review for us to gain access to that property for retriever training on a pilot program. And I'm just here today to just ask for that to be put on one of your agendas. I've been checking the agenda since then, and I see you guys are pretty busy, but just asking basically to have that put on the agenda. And I do actually have an outline of the pilot program that we're requesting, if you guys would like a copy of that.
Thank you very much.
And
Do
if you
you have
have-
that on you by chance?
I do.
If you could send that electronically too, but if you have it, that'd be great. Electronically would be great if we need to reference it again in the future. Mr. Ayers, trustee Ayers here, has brought up to the board, I think a couple times, that the port and you folks are interested in
Yeah.
going out, so we are aware,
Okay.
it's a matter of getting you on the agenda.
Sounds good, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And I do know that Keith, I think you have an electronic version of this too also, don't you?
Oh,
Thank you.
thank you very much, sir. Janet Lindbeck? Is that, are you,
I'm part of the broad.
oh, I'm sorry, I just said Loveland on it, okay.
Oh.
No, that's fine, yeah, thank you. Okay, that includes, what we can, speak to under public comment. Again, thank you, folks under Broadmoor for coming out tonight. The board is interested in hearing, from you guys during the public hearing, if we choose to go that route. Okay, we'll move on now to the regular agenda. Start out with consent. Would trustees like anything removed from consent? Otherwise, is there a motion to approve?
So. Second.
All right, trustee Ayers has moved on the consent. Mayor Pro Tem Murphy has seconded. Clerk, can we have a roll call vote, please?
Trustee Wing,
Yes.
trustee Hardy,
Yes.
trustee Ayers,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Murphy,
Yes.
trustee Albrecht, Mayor Karstad.
Yes. All right, consent has been approved unanimously. Moving on to item number 2, and that is the Broad Meadow Annexation Petition Resolution of Substantial Compliance. We have our Community Development Director, Ann Johnson here.
Thank you, Mayor Karspeck and members of the Board of Trustees. You all are very familiar with this process. However, the individuals that are in the audience may not understand what the process is this evening. So when staff gets an idea that there is an annexation that may be interested in coming to the town, we do have pre-application meetings. The applicant has several discussions with staff to talk about utility provisions as well as road. We then accept the application from the applicant. We make a determination that it has been filed correctly. And then tonight is the meeting. And at this meeting, the town trustees will be talking about, was the petition filed correctly according to our code and according to state statute? And then if you find that to be so, then setting the public hearing on when testimony can be taken. So then again, the post-approval actions will include public notice. The sign will be posted on the property. It will be published in the newspaper, and surrounding property owners within 500 feet of the property will receive notice in the mail as well. So again, tonight, staff will make a presentation, and then you all as trustees will discuss and make a decision. So tonight, we're taking a look at the Broad Meadow annexation. There is contiguity of at least 1/6, and this is done in several ways. When you're not immediately touching the town, you can get contiguity through survey work and line work. So right now, you can see in the lower left-hand side of your screen, there's an area that's outlined in blue. That is the property under consideration. There's also area I outlined in gray, that is CDOT right-of-way that is proposed to be annexed, and they get that contiguity from the property to the south that was annexed to the town. And then on the aerial image, you can see the Broad Meadow application that is highlighted in blue, and the contiguity then through that annexation then is the area in yellow. And our contract surveyor at Baseline Engineering did confirm that the contiguity that the applicant is stating is actually, in fact, the contiguity, and that the method in which it was reached is within the parameters of state statute. So again, that there's that contiguity, that the petition was filed according to state statute, and then also our municipal code. If you find that those two items have been met, then there will be a resolution of substantial compliance tonight. That is all. You're not discussing merits. And then set the hearing date for August 12th, 2025. So just again, to familiarize yourself where this project fits in the context of the town's future visioning. It is that property that's in yellow, which means it is envisioned for suburban residential on our future land use map. And this was adopted in 2021. And then I wanted to go back and take a look at what was our future land use map in 2014. And it was noted as high-density residential development in 2014 as well. So nothing really changed in the past decade for envisioning this property. And then this slide is just for the record. It is the verbatim quote from our code talking about the petition. This is a reduced version for discussion purposes. One, annexation is a discretionary act. The town trustees determine their interest. Things that show interest from the town is a comprehensive plan, the future land use map. There is timing on the Bacon Lake Interceptor project, which would provide them with the sanitary sewer. However, that takes time to build out, as does the going through the land use plan process. Then on item 2, conformance with the goals, policies, and strategies of the comprehensive plan and the future land use map. Again, we showed the future land use map from 2021 and 2014. That the developer shall design, engineer, and install public facilities and amenities necessary. The applicant shall fully fund their sewer line and their water line that's needed to serve the project, and also make any necessary changes to the intersection of 287 and the frontage road to serve the project. That the applicant shall pay fees necessary to process the application. The applicant has paid fees and did provide a deposit to cover review expenses. That annexed areas will not typically divide tracts of land, and there's no land division proposed as part of this annexation. Land division will occur during the platting process should it move that far. And then the annexation application requirements were followed, and staff did review them and determined that the annexation documents provided do meet the intent of the code and that state statute for filing a petition. And that concludes staff's presentation.
Thank you, Director Johnson. Trustees, questions? Do you mind just keeping that last screen up? I just wanted to clarify with Attorney Smith, and thank you for your explanation of this, both of you. So the interest part of this is what's confusing me. So on the left here, I see number 1, annexation is discretionary act, town trustees to determine interest. Is that, and that's tonight, maybe? But then on the right, interest is comp plan and sanitary sewer. So I guess my confusion here is, as an individual trustee, my interest is not tonight. To weigh that would be at a future public hearing. Tonight is just to set that date?
That's correct.
Okay. Any other questions, trustees? Okay. And does anyone wish to move on resolution 2025-09? If you could please read that full sentence there.
I move to approve resolution 2025-09, a resolution of substantial compliance regarding petition for annexation filed by TTLC Management, Inc., and setting the matter for a public hearing.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, trustee Hardy has moved on the resolution and trustee Wing has seconded. Clerk, can we have a roll call vote, please?
Trustee Hardy,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Murphy,
Abstain.
Trustee Wing,
Yes.
Trustee Albrecht,
Yes.
Trustee Ayers,
Yes.
Mayor Karspeck.
Yes. Okay, the resolution has been approved. Thank you, folks. Thank you, Director Johnson. We can now move on to item number 3, which is the Berthoud Branding Assessment Study. And we have our community, your rule changed, so thank you, if you could please come up, yeah. I just forgot your new title, so thank you, yeah. Community engagement, okay. Yep, I will keep doing that as well. Write it down. Thank you. Welcome.
Thank you. Mr. Mayor, trustees, fans of Morton.
In February, we began the process of assessing our brand, and we selected Chandler Thinks to help us clarify our identity, align growth with our community values, and improve regional perception. This process was not about coming up with a new logo. It wasn't about a new tagline or color scheme. It was about discovering who we are as a municipality and helping guide us in creating a stronger sense of place as we move forward and grow. In March, many of you participated in the one-on-one interviews we conducted. Thank you all for doing that. We also hosted in-person focus groups and had an online survey for our community and an additional survey that focused on people living outside of Berthoud. If you participated in that, thank you all very much. Steve Chandler of Chandler Thinks is here to present his findings. In the interest of covering all the information and keeping the presentation moving along, I ask that you guys hold your questions until the end. I put pads and pens down there so you can write them down so you don't forget them. Cool?
Thank you very much.
All right.
Appreciate that.
Hello, everyone. Nice
Welcome.
to be back in Berthoud. Am I gonna have?
Yes, Steve, if you advance several slides, that will go to your presentation.
There we go. Good deal. All right, I'm gonna try to keep this as tight as I can, but not lose what's important. Because there was a lot of information gathered in this process. So, what I'm gonna try to cover swiftly, but like I said, with punctuation where necessary. The purpose of this was to learn what we talk about. What is branding for a community, for a municipality? Are we a pair of shoes? Are we a Snickers bar? That seems a little odd. And reality is, it's not something we're used to doing, but the reality is people have choices of where they live, where they move, where they're gonna relocate their businesses. At the end of the day, it's about your reputation. This is really a reputation assessment, and to understand how we view ourselves and how others view our community. And that's really another way of looking at this project. How you tell that story, I will conclude this presentation with the framework of how that's done correctly and with success. And with a lot of work and with a lot of things beyond a logo, I can promise you. All right, so I'll try to go through what we learned, like again, what locals say, what outsiders say. We'll have a very, very, very thorough report. If I didn't edit this for this meeting, it literally was over 175 slides. No worries, I edited for this meeting, and you're not going to get that. I did it more for 10, 15 minutes. But again, the purpose of this project was a look at our identity, better understand who we are, so we understand how do we tell that story moving forward. And what's important, one of the things that's very, very important is this wasn't let's hire some research firm out of branding company out of Nashville, Tennessee. That doesn't make any sense. Why would we do that all the way out there? It's not about what we think. You didn't hire us because of what we think. You actually hired us because of our process requires community engagement. It requires listening to other people. That's what we've done for over 100 different communities in a lot of different states. So it's the process, the credibility behind it. I will say, I personally worked, last 15 years, our company's worked on about 100 different communities in the last 15 years. You're in the top 3 or 4 when it comes to participation. Not per capita, just period. That's to be proud of. That means we're touching a nerve of something that's important, by the way. That means people care about the reputation of Berthoud. And there's a moment in time, something's going on right now is usually what that tells me. Over 1,200 people participated in this research. We did have a team that came here and were familiar with things, so we didn't just look at information from afar. Many of you all we spoke with, some people out here we probably spoke with. We went around the area. We did include some focus groups, some interviews. We had over 800 community surveys completed from those in the community. That's more than double what we needed to be statistically valid, right? So that's super important. In other words, if we stopped from all over again and had 800 other people, we'd get the same response. It's just statistics, right? So confidence in information is important. We also spoke to over 300 people outside of Berthoud, by the way, people that do not live here. And what did they say about you? And then we did pretty heavy analysis of your own communications and what you look like online. That matters. People don't pick up the phone and call Trustee Ayers to find out whether I should move my business here. They're just going to go online and stalk the community. That's what they do. You don't get the first phone call. It goes People are looking online, so that what our footprint looks online matters. So a lot of work. Now, if you're lucky to be Stephanie, then you received a 175-page presentation to go through all this wonderful research. We're gonna go backwards. We're gonna just take you through what did we learn, and I'll give you a few pieces of nuggets of research that back it up. That's what we'll cover, okay? Now, when you go through a branding assessment, the rules of branding our community are a little bit differently, and again, I'll get to those in a minute. But what I think we can all grab onto is if we're gonna move forward with telling our story, with positively affecting our reputation moving forward, that's why you did this project, by the way, right? Positively affecting our reputation as we move forward. If you're gonna do it, then there's some fundamental, what we call brand truths that have to be a part of the story because the research was overwhelming. It was overwhelming. This is part of our identity. There's a lot of little nuggets that are our identity that won't, but there's 4 primary, what we call brand truths to Berthoud. They are, number 1, starts with downtown. Downtown Berthoud is a vital part of the town's identity and its heritage. Many of you all know that. It came out on a large level for us. This is a piece of research that came out of the community survey that over 800 people responded to. We asked, what is the most unique characteristic about Berthoud not found in other surrounding communities? You can see, we'll go through the details, but small town feel, community pride. Now this doesn't rank it by what you're looking at on the slide. I can tell you I've looked at all the research. There's not a close second. There's not a close second. This looks like there's a close second, and there's not. It is small town feel and community pride. It became the joke of our focus groups because that's overwhelmingly what everyone wanted to talk about. And then you go to a walkable historic downtown, and you can see the other things here. But our downtown in the small, we know each other feel matters to this community, right? We also in the community survey we ask a question. It's more of a scaling question. 1 is not important at all, and 10 is very important. How important is it to Berthoud's character and personality to keep downtown as the main focal point? How important is it? By the way, 5 and 6 is average, of course. 6 and 7s are not good scores, really. It's above, it's over 7 and above is actually which means people are proud of it. They brag about it. Look at how you scored here, 8.6. Absolutely. Downtown as the main focal point is key. It was on people's minds. Brand truth number 2, ag heritage. There's a little spacing error here, but we'll look beyond that, right? Ag heritage can still be seen and felt as evident in the community's appreciation and sense of preservation for open spaces. That includes maintaining their exceptional front range views. You all know how proud all of you are of Long's Peak, the best. According to the research, it's not my opinion, by the way, but according to you all, it's the best view of Long's Peak of anywhere on the front range. You're very braggadocious about that and proud of that view. By the way, you won't see this tonight, but the outside research, others actually agree the best place to view is in Berthoud too, so how about that? But in all seriousness, ag heritage is a big deal. Now, it may not be as strong of an economic stimulus to the community as it used to be, but every place wants to know that they mattered and that they're there for a reason. I can tell you from working with a lot of places, the ag heritage here matters. Open space preservation matters. People chose to live in Berthoud. They didn't have to. They had to live here. They could just live in Loveland or Longmont. And the rest of the hustle and bustle because the jobs relocated. It's more convenient to live in Loveland and Longmont. There's more things to do. People chose Berthoud. They chose it because there is this balance of space. There is a heritage that matters. And it came through in the research quite a bit. I would imagine that discussing land is always an issue for this group of people because it matters to the people that live here. It came over. You look at a community survey, we ask, what are the most notable assets for positively shaping Berthoud to what it is today? Number 1 answers, 2 answers are related to outdoors. Now, right? The view of Long's Peaks and Mount Meeker, the proximity of the mountains. And by the way, what's really the number 1 answer you can control? Downtown Berthoud is next there too. Back to our first brand truth. But the assets of being near the outdoors and being able to appreciate that is something that's near and dear to the people of this community. We also asked a question in the survey. Again, another ranking question. 1, not important, 10, very important, or proud, no community pride, or 10 being an extreme sense of pride. We gave them some assets and look at the numbers. I kind of gave you our view of what numbers you want to look at that say they're strong or not. It's anything over a 7.5 really, right? But you look at the views and the value of the parks and the rec center, right? How important they are to the community. So yeah, we want outdoors. In fact, the fun question we asked in the in-market, all our focus groups, we asked, what's the most iconic visual of Berthoud? Overwhelming, of course, it's the grain elevator and the view. You won't hear it here. I actually have a slide that shows how many logos of businesses in this community are of Long's Peak. Like all of you have it. If there's any businesses in the audience, there's at least 2 of you that probably have a logo of Long's Peak. Hey, even your bike park logo has it in there twice. You're so proud of it, right? Yeah, outdoors matters to this community. Yes, your ag heritage matters. Are they just designs on the street and somebody had some artistic vision of this? You know what? It could be seen as that, and if that's all you see in it, it's nice. But it's also a nod to a heritage that matters to agricultural past, and it can still be relevant and interesting today, no different than the light poles you have downtown. So yes, it's there. There's a lot of other reasons beyond that. Brand truth number 3, and again, there's some formatting issues on this when I saved it to a PDF, I guess, so I apologize. But juxtaposed to its bustling neighbors, and I think this might be the big one of the night. A lot of times we judge ourselves based on who we're standing next to. It's a curse that happens in junior high, I'm pretty sure. But because you're next to Longmont and Loveland, and no offense to them, but this project is about understanding who we are. And I sat in focus groups with the community, the residents and leaders of Berthoud, and it's all you talked about was you're not Loveland and you're not Longmont, and you're very happy about that, by the way. You're respectful to them, but you're not them. Because you're next to them is why you cling to this small town charm, and there's a perceived threat to growth. Why? Back to what I said earlier, you chose to live here. You could have easily been a lot more convenient to live in Longmont and Loveland, but you chose to live here for that small town charm, and because you see them every day, because you have to go eat there, have the amenities that you need, you have to go there to get them. So you're around it all the time, and it is a perceived threat. That's a challenge that you all have to make decisions on all the time, and it's not going to go away anytime soon. Do know it's dear to the people of this community. That small town charm is constantly perceived as a threat as we make decisions to grow, which we are. So what are we going to do there? A little backup on that. The in-market trip, we ask, what is the reputation of Berthoud among people who do not live here? In other words, what do we think other people think about us? Look, small town, positive vibes, bedroom community, peaceful, pride in our legacy. If you dig into it, they're talking about ag heritage, actually, history and aesthetics, right? It looks and feels great. We walk our kids to our elementary school down the street, and we love it, right? We have Berthoud Day coming up. We also ask in the community survey, what are the biggest challenges that keep us from being better than we are? Right? Let's ask it the other way. What are the big challenges? And this is the bipolar slide, by the way, because look at the answers we received. And no doubt about it, the risk of losing small town to rapid growth, and yet there's also this desire for more amenities. You're right? Congratulations, council. All right, right? Number one thing, overdevelopment. What's the big challenges, the threat that's in our way? Number one, overdevelopment and loss of small. We don't want to lose who we are. But number two, we don't have enough dining and retail. We want more. We want more, but we don't want to lose who we are, right? So I mean, what do we do about that? That means you have to be elected officials and a little bit therapist, okay? It's not easy, but it's important to try. Our infrastructure is to capacity, but yet people are resistant to change, right? So it's a little bit of both. It's tough, for sure. I think that's what matters about this. And then, interesting enough, we had to ask this question, and it made the top 4 of our brand truths. Garden Spot of Colorado. If I wanted to strike a conversation in the research with people, all I had to do was bring this up. Everybody had an opinion about it. Nobody was united about it, by the way. It's well known. Everyone knows it, but it's not well defined, nor is it widely accepted. Okay? We asked a question. What would you expect from a town that claims to be the Garden Spot of Colorado? where good things grow. What do you expect? Well, it's a little divided. Most don't understand it. They find it outdated. What does it mean? What is it? They just didn't know. Some absolutely connected to agricultural rich soil. What we noticed was if you've lived here a long time, you make the connection. Garden spot means agriculture, and it's where we live, where we come from, and all stuff. If you've lived here less than 10 years, which a lot of your population does, it doesn't mean anything. It's a complete disconnect. Garden, what does ag and garden even have to do? A lot of people don't connect those together, right? We ask outsiders, what would you expect from a town? Again, they don't live in Berthoud. What would you expect from a town that claims to be the garden spot of Colorado? What do you expect? Here's your blueprint. If you want to keep it, here's your blueprint. Be that kind of community. If you're going to claim the garden spot, be a place where natural beauty and green spaces go. You should have an arboretum. Oh, never mind. Right? Agricultural and local food. There's actually a great bigger list in the research. But it's a blueprint for what you should try to do. If you're going to claim it, be it, right? So our recommendations for you all. Number one, there needs to be some communication to the community. We forget this. I reminded Stephanie and staff, and there's a lot of things going on in our community. You know the good rule of marketing? I'm an old ad agency guy, by the way. The good rule is you have to speak to someone. Someone has to be exposed to a message a minimum 3 times before they even make a decision of how they feel about it. At least 3 times. And a lot of times what we do is like, oh, check. We're telling people we did this and we're moving on. And they haven't really checked in with us. They didn't see it. They weren't exposed to the message. We have to be pretty tenacious about telling them our plans. You all have a comp plan that you approved, I understand, right? Sharing what that is on an ongoing basis, not just once, is super important. I mean, right? It's tough because your agenda of things on a weekly level is so big. And I'm speaking to the communication staff, everybody, but from working with municipalities, this is a very common dilemma. We've got all this stuff going on, and when we're going through a lot of growth and change, which you are right there, right? The community starts to get confused. They're not really sure what's going on. And so that's super important. By the way, there's some research specifically about how the community thinks about the town of Berthoud's operations and leadership, by the way, so I encourage you to look for that. But there needs to be an ongoing messaging effort that tells everyone what we're doing. Not just, we told you 2 years ago. There needs to be an ongoing campaign that says, here's what we're doing and how we are being the Berthoud that we need to be. And it probably should include some of the things that we're learning about who we are. Be in front of the conversation. Number 2, downtown. I know you know this, so just let this be what you double down on. Downtown is the identity of Berthoud. The change, the new stuff, has got new bricks, and it's real shiny, and it's on the fringe of downtown. I've been there. I've stayed at TPC townhouses. They're cool. But your identity, the core of it, will always be downtown. And so preserving that as a precious item that allows you to do other things is going to be very important moving forward, okay? Shape it to preserve your community heritage. It should be your primary storytelling asset. There's a lot to Fort Collins, but Old Town preserves their story, doesn't it? We don't need to go, well, look, they're Fort Collins, they're big. No. It works for us too. It works absolutely for us. That's why Old Town is so special. It's because they've felt confident enough about their story and they tell it downtown and preserve what's precious. And they can be all kinds of things on the fringe, but in the core, they treat it as precious, and so do we. All right? Keep Garden Spot of Colorado as a nickname. I don't know if it should be your tagline on everything you do yet. Keep it. It actually fits. I actually believe you didn't go all in. You need to go all in. If you're going to say you're the Garden Spot, be the Garden Spot. If you're going to put it on the entrance signs, then be it. Right? If you think about it, if you really bring the Garden Spot of Colorado to life, and it would be a fun exercise to do with citizens, if we're going to be a place that says we're the garden, again, don't worry about it being a tagline. It can be a nickname. Places have positioning lines for campaigns and marketing efforts and have nicknames all the time, right? No one here knows the tagline for New York. You don't, I promise. But, I mean, everyone knows I love New York and it's a tourist campaign and stuff like, but you don't know their tagline. But there's a nickname, I bet you, everybody knows the city it doesn't, never sleeps, right? It's their nickname, there's a reason they live up to it. Cities have nicknames, they have multiple nicknames all the time. All I know is, don't throw away the garden spot. You're just not going all in with it. Live it and everything. Think about it, the check marks that it gives you. Downtown, does it help, does garden spot actually tie in to a unique place that can kind of give us a small town feel and ag heritage downtown? Absolutely, check. Small town feel, check. Does it help preserve open spaces? Check. Does it help your ag heritage? Check. It does a lot of things that's important to your community. We just need to go all in with it, and I don't think we've done that. Some people were behind it, some people weren't. When you look at next steps for branding, yes, we're going to recommend in our final report that you do some classic branding things that everyone thinks branding is, right? Marketing communication elements, right? It starts with developing our story based on all the things that you learned in the research, right? We've got this great story. We need to establish a voice, right? Instead of saying we're something for everybody, no, we're not. We're not something for everybody. We're a special place for people that want that. And we need to be comfortable with that story. It's okay for not everyone to want us, right? There's some people need to keep going down the road a little bit. That's okay, right? We need to get our story and our voice behind us. Maybe a positioning line comes out of that process that's not the garden spot, by the way. It's okay, right? It should fit. What kind of tagline would a place that says the garden spot have, right? Sure, you need to evaluate your logo, maybe design a logo that's more adaptable for today's setting. What you have is fine. It's limiting in some ways. I don't want to get too much into graphic design theory at this point. There's a lot of things about it that's great. It's got the peaks in it for sure, right? It needs to be versatile. And the hero of your logo actually shouldn't be the elements, it should be your name. Berthoud should be the hero of your logo. So would advise a logo and graphic system. We don't always have to use our logo every time we speak for someone to recognize us, but for branding, we want people to recognize us, right? That's where your typography and graphic treatments and other elements can work together. Sometimes icons and buttons that all tie into a bigger logo system would work. Seal preservation. And I think you all have talked about this before from my background I read. There's times where you don't use the logo. You want to be more of acknowledging a nod of heritage or denoting a special achievement of someone and distinguishable characteristics. And a seal can do that very well. It's not meant to be a logo. It's meant to be give a designation. So there's a way of doing that, and that plays a role in your story. A brand guide that tells you how to do this, messaging campaign, that stuff, that takes like 3 to 4 months to develop. So you're looking at, if you all move on making decisions on just the graphical part of branding the community, you'll be ready to start implementing in January. So again, I'm staying broad at this point, but that's kind of how that looks. And then, but the last thing I want to leave you on, the very last thing, is what does really branding Berthoud look like? What does it look like? Now, these elements that I just went over with you, the typical branding that a design firm would tell you, like, oh yeah, this is branding, you do all these things. That's step one. What we call brand integration. We've learned who we are. Now let's integrate it into everything we do. Our uniforms, right? Some of y'all have some nice mugs with logos on it. Maybe you'll put it on the back there, and, right? Your pens and all the merchandise. That'd be great, right? On the front of the building, you need to get some graphics on the front of that. Your signage around town. That's brand integration. That's just step one. Now, next to step two is sharing it. The most important people in branding are the people who deliver the product. So that's all the department heads and the people that work for the town. They're the ones delivering the brand of Berthoud. So if someone were to ask them, hey, why, I've got the logo on me because I'm driving the truck down the road, and I get out I go to the Pit Stop Barbecue for after happy hour and got my Berthoud shirt on, and they go, hey, why are you the garden spot? If I say, I don't know why we're the garden spot, we all look foolish. Imagine if Chick-fil-A employee, someone goes, hey, what's up with, every time someone says thank you to Chick-fil-A employee, you all say, my pleasure. Why do you say that? If that employee goes, I have no idea Who looks foolish? Everybody at Chick-fil-A. Their brand falls down. There's a story behind it. So we have to spend effort to teach our staff, to educate them so they're on board with who are we? Who do we want to be as a town, right? As a municipality. Our staff and elected officials have to be in on it. It's not a ruse. It has to be something we really care about. And then we can share it with the community. That takes a little bit of time. That's step number 2 in branding Berthoud. Number 3 is creating a sense of place, right? I always say public works actually are the most important people involved in actually branding any community because they affect what you see, right? There's a line of demarcation when I've entered Berthoud, when I get off the interstate, when I see the signs, the welcome to Berthoud signs. Are the streets clean or not? Are building codes being followed or not? Right? Creating a sense of place is hard work. By the way, there are places that their downtowns are decorative with nods to their ag heritage. Lake City, South Carolina is one that comes to mind, by the way. You've never seen cabbage look so nice, right? So your ag heritage can be great decorative ornaments for landscaping, right? But you're also looking at fencing. Lexington, Kentucky, one example I'll give you, because I think this is important because we've identified there's a perceived threat that growth will ruin our small town vibe. Lexington, Kentucky is the second largest city in the state of Kentucky. There are 250 to 300 some odd thousand people. I promise you, if you go there, it looks like horse farms. As big as they are, yeah, I promise you, there's nothing more sacred in Lexington, Kentucky than their horse farms. They have policies, codes, where if you're a developer, residential or commercial, you must have horse fencing, and they've identified what horse fencing is. If your development adjoins any of what they've identified as major and secondary corridors, it's not a question. You will not only have a fence, you're gonna pay for it. You're putting the fence up, and so when you'll go all around Lexington, and it's like one big giant horse farm, right? That's just one example. That preserves the reputation of Lexington in one way that's uniformed all around the community. So creating a sense of place is super, super important. It's not about sticking our logo on every place. The only city that needs to worry about that is where all the NASCAR teams are located in North Carolina, right? We are not gonna preserve our image because we have a great logo and we stick it on everything. It's because our environment and our aesthetics, okay? Then we want step 4 is community engagement. That is getting other people involved. If branding is such a great idea for Berthoud, it should help local business. So therefore, how do they get involved? I'll tell you what they don't want to do. Use your logo. They've got their own local brand they need to build. But if you do your job, our brand story at the town government level should be a reflection of the reality of the community, of the types of businesses that we have. What would I expect? Small town mom and pops, ag heritage, right? That's what I expect. So it should, if done correctly, it should be a reflection of the reality. And then we've got to find ways to empower our local businesses, our community, our arts council, right? Give me some more murals. You've got a few here, right? Let's get the local businesses involved in storytelling that helps their business. That is true community branding. Last example I'll give, I'm from Nashville, Tennessee. Everybody knows our brand, it's Music City. You know why Nashville is Music City? Because it is. We didn't get a letter from the mayor saying, hey, I need all of you all to adopt. No, Nashville decided it's Music City because it is Music City. We're kind of learning what we are. We need to be that. And by doing so, it gives us, we work together like a beautiful chorus singing together, right? And we need to empower our businesses and our arts and our education, our schools to get involved in storytelling the way they would do it. Collectively, that's going to create an authentic story and preserve our sense of place. Lastly, there's a lot of measurements we need to do. That is how you brand Berthoud. So there's a lot of work ahead, but you can't do any of it if you don't learn who you are, which I think we have a good idea of it now. So there you go. It might have been a little bit long, but I hope it was valuable. Any questions?
Any questions?
Yeah, I think one of the things you've done here, as I read this before the meeting tonight, you really confirmed or affirmed the discussions we've had about what we are, right? And if you brand a circle as a square, you're not a square, right? Just like you said about, Nashville.
Can't put it too high.
Wasn't your city council telling you what you were what you are. I think it's the same thing with Berthoud. And when you said like all in on the garden spot, you can't just have it as a word or a tagline. I think we need to define what does all in mean? What does it mean, right? More flower beds, flowers all over the place. So if we're gonna believe in that, then we have to be what we say we are there. And I think that's part of what you're saying here. And I looked at your project overview, said Berthoud initiated a brand assessment to clarify its identity and then align growth with community values. And I think that's where we're a little diametrically opposed, right? We're in one of the fastest growing areas of Colorado. We've got two bookends that absolutely are conducive for growth, I-25 and 287. So as we brand ourselves, and we're like a two-headed animal, we're kind of almost like two brands going forward with the growth. And I think that's one of the things we wrestle with, the quaintness, the beautiness, the small town, but this growth that's coming. I mean, it's coming and it's driving, and there's a lot of money and resources behind growth. And so, how do we address that with our brand? I think that's what we would need some help with. As you stated in your overview, how do we brand those two different components of our community?
Yeah, when you're there, Belmont, North Carolina is a community that comes to mind because they're 25 miles outside of Charlotte. And small town charm is super, super important to them. There's a handful of those that you can look up and do some research on and find out how do they, because here's what's happened. The short answer, I live in one of them called Franklin, Tennessee. We have this little downtown that's hallmarky and all that good fun stuff. We are a retail animal. It's obscene. That allows us to keep this precious thing precious. In our downtown and our heritage, absolutely precious. Because we're gonna make all our money with the retail over here, right? That's their strategy. So you can do both. You can do both. Anytime you mention the word growth, it's going to create some tension to residents, to some of you that you represent. I get it. Preserving what people feel is the small town charm, the familiarity, a place I can go walk and see people that I know. That's why people chose Berthoud, and you've got to figure out how can we have that balance, and it's a constant conversation you got to have.
So I got Belmont, might be, how would a comparable sized community have you seen go forward from this stage? Obviously staff will be involved in this. Is there a citizens committee to try and further define this, or how?
Well,
where do we go?
you've done the research on understanding it, unless you find there could be some places that you're like that as you read it. Someone mentioned there's a piece they're like, well, I wonder what they meant by that. And I said, well, look behind the curtain of the research, and you'll get some deeper insights. If you see something that's a problem area, that requires further investigation, possibly. It might not have been the goal of our research. Moving forward on branding, I think that's your question.
Yes, it is.
Yes, sir. Moving forward on branding, you want to keep your community, your citizens involved, engaged. That doesn't mean, I'll go at this really directly. It does not mean do creative work by design. Don't do it. You'll never get there, and you'll never make everyone, in fact, you'll make everyone mad.
Like, and what's that, creative work by design is having citizens sketch up?
Yeah, absolutely. You do not want to do that. I would leave that in your hands of your communications team to oversee that process. There's a ton of creative talent in the area that you're located now, worthy of getting bids from companies that do that. So I would probably issue an RFP for the creative, define a scope of work for what the municipality needs from the creative process. I still think you want to look at the other pieces as it's listed here. They're going to give you item number one, brand integration. So what does logo and graphic standards and a brand guide, a brand story and tagline, what does all that stuff look like? So we have the tools we need to be consistent. And then what you're not seeing here, it just shows what we're fair. Our point person, the sweetest person in the world, Stephanie, but even we critiqued her like crazy. Is she in here still? I think
Yeah,
she is.
it's right there.
Yeah, right, like, the communications has some work to do, and we talked about that, right? From a branding perspective, there needs to be consistency, so everything that we do needs to look like it's from us, right? So you need those tools created under step one, for sure. I would issue an RFP. I will tell you, whoever you hire to do it, let them do it. I wouldn't do a community, and it sounds like it's the right thing to do, a community vote. No, this is professional. And if you have locals that are professional designers at that, let them bid on it. Then absolutely let them participate. I can give you many examples of communities that try to go to like a community logo contest, and all of a sudden politics take over.
Sure.
And now it can get pretty hairy for any one of you.
What, how about engaging the community, like, you were talking about schools or their business
Yeah.
community getting their buy-in.
100%.
How would we do that?
Can I add something
Yeah.
just real quick?
Sure.
The Arboretum is almost done being designed, we're pretty much at that point. And Chris and I have spoken about having community, garden days. So have community members come out and plant flower section, have them come out garden section, have like Arbor Day where we had planted 7 trees in an hour. Have them plant part of the tree, so they're buying in that part. So garden spot, everyone's like, I planted that tree. You know, and generations from now, my grandpappy planted that tree. So that, we think will be.
That's an excellent idea. Great.
Right? It's pretty good.
Great. Well,
Yeah, let them define it, I think is what she's saying. And yeah, so if you want schools involved, don't tell them how to be involved. Ask them, how could you be involved? I've seen high schools take the brand strategy, the direction that a community was going. That's all they needed. They created a senior scholarship contest it was like a marketing course for the senior high school. And they competed and the winning team won scholarship funds. But they defined what they wanted to do. Guess what? Whatever they do is right. Right? Whatever they do is right. The story of our community is dynamic. We're not robots. We don't look exactly alike. We don't walk around saying the tagline of where we live. What we end up doing is talking about why we love where we live. And it's probably similar to how you did it, even though the words came out differently. So you want to let schools do it their way. You want to let art do it their way. Let businesses do it their way. Give them a center strategy that they can run off and go, oh yeah, I could do something with that.
Thank you. That answered my question.
Dublin, Ohio would be another good example, by the way.
Out of your experience with other communities, what would you say we needed, maybe outstanding the most in what we need to do? To me, it sounded like communicating what's going on.
Mhm.
Is that correct?
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah. Frequency is your friend, unless you're the one that did it. It's a lot of work.
She's great, by the way.
But frequency is your friend, and consistency in what you see, like being recognizable, is your friend. And so we've talked a lot about that. So that's
Talk about a town song and a flag and all this good stuff.
Yeah, that's right. Sure.
Other questions? All right.
All right. Thank you all very much for your time.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's been excellent. I really appreciate it. Have a safe flight back, unless you want to move here.
I've already sent that to
Next is the Historic Preservation Plan Contract Award. Give it back to Director Johnson.
Good evening. So the goal of having a historic preservation plan for the town is, so one of the goals is, of course, to provide direction. Like we just heard, we need a plan, we need to implement it, we need to take action, and then we continually assess. Another goal for the town is that by the Historic Preservation Advisory Committee can also maintain our certified local government status with the state of Colorado. By maintaining our status with the state of Colorado, we can get support, we can get training, we get access to grants and financial assistance, and also tax credits for property owners to do what's right by their property if they want to maintain the historic integrity of their property. So in order to achieve this, in March, the town received funding from the History Colorado Certified Local Government Grant. There are some hiccups with federal appropriation of funding right now to the National Park Service, which is where that money would come from. So the state of Colorado also recommended that we apply for another grant through the state of Colorado. It's a very competitive grant, and we have yet to hear from the state on that. We went ahead and we issued the RFP in mid-March, and the RFP, we're looking for consultants to do this work for us. The RFP says, hey, we're not gonna enter into a contract unless we have the funding secured. So then the end of March, we submitted for the State Historical Fund grant. Then in April, at the end of April, we received 9 bids. I was excited for 2 because with 2, you actually have competition, right? But 9, it was great. The Historic Preservation Advisory Committee was asked to review all of those proposals. Staff also reviewed the proposals. Then the bids for everybody was presented to HPAC on May 12th. And then on May 27th, we're here to give you to tell you who we would like to retain for these services. So this is very small, sorry. This is actually in order of ranking. So Chronicle Heritage, without looking at budget, the HPAC and staff ranked them highest for the amount of public engagement. They're actually a local firm. They're just based down in Lafayette. Similar plans that they've worked on as well as references came back great. They're on time, under budget, and they also identified value added when something was discovered during the process. They're actually the lowest bid as well. So what the plan is going to do, it's for the incorporated portions of Berthoud as well as what's in our urban growth boundary area. So they will take a look at historic structures and assets outside our boundary, so we know what is within that portfolio that could become within Berthoud someday in the future. They're going to develop that database. They're gonna develop a public engagement campaign. They're going to talk with people during this process to determine what is important to Berthoud when it comes to our history and our assets. They're also going to evaluate the town's existing preservation activities and work with HPAC and staff to determine what more could we be doing. What is an annual event? May is Historic Preservation Month, and so what could we be doing every May? What becomes the town's thing? Is it a walking tour? What does that happen to be? And then it gives us those tools to use for education as well as for promoting our heritage, future engagement, and preservation related goals for the town. So with that, staff is asking that you go ahead and approve the contract, that we will enter into that contract with Chronicle Heritage when we receive funding, either from those 2 funding sources, or because it is, roughly $35,000, do we go ahead and note that you will accept a mid-year budget change, and we'll just go ahead and self-fund to do this work without needing any grant support at all. So we're not asking you to tell staff to sign the contract. We're just saying that when we get the money, that we can go ahead and enter into a contract with Chronicle Heritage. And then the other ask is, do you want to just go ahead and self-fund?
Questions, trustees? It would. Comment?
Okay, I have a
Yeah.
question. Yeah, I have a question. I'm sorry if I misunderstood. So there are 2 options. Either we say wait for State Historical Fund, or tonight we say we're gonna put this as a line item.
Yes, and the first question though is, do you support HPAC and staff saying we want to retain Chronicle Heritage when we get funding? And then the next question is, how long do we wait for funding? Because every month it's, well, maybe next month, well, maybe next month. And
Th-
so then
okay.
that funding source.
And then eventually they're probably gonna wanna rebid, right? If it, we keep delaying it, costs might change, or
It definitely could.
Okay,
Yep, you're exactly right.
what about, how would this affect the state looking at our grant? Could we have them backfill us by chance, and would that look as competitive as us waiting?
So they won't, if we start without being, we've been awarded, we just don't have the money. And so,
Okay, sorry.
yeah, we've been awarded one grant, and they said because federal appropriations hasn't been released on the National Park Service, which is where that funding would come from, we've been awarded, but the bucket's empty. So we applied for another grant, it's very competitive, and we have yet to hear from them. So the choices, there are two choices, and I'm so sorry if I've confused things. Two choices tonight that staff is asking you to make. One, do you support HPAC and their selection of Chronicle Heritage? Then two, staff will continue waiting to receive funding, or you can choose to self-fund, and we will present that to you as a mid-year budget request. We have budget now, we could get started on it now, and then we wouldn't rely on the state to fund. And yes, we're going to make sure that the state is approving our master plan so that we can be a certified local government.
Do you think this okay, thank you, that helps. Do you think this affects, that competitive grant? Do you think that if we did this, self-funded this, do you think that would affect their decision? I know it's hard to, you don't have a crystal ball, but, would it, if we essentially asking to be backfilled, would that affect their decision, do you think?
Yeah, I don't think that if we made the decision to go ahead and proceed forward, I don't think that we would get the grant money after all. So, I mean, it's $35,000. It is a lot of money. However, how long do we continue waiting? And then your point is correct, that if we issue another RFP in 6 months, the prices could go up.
How long do we have to wait for the competitive one to get?
I would say I would hope that we would be hearing in June or July,
Okay, so about, I mean,
another 2 months.
technically a couple weeks, or, yeah, a month and a half. Okay. Other questions?
Yeah.
Trustee Wynn?
Just understand, so, there's words in these bullet points like evaluate, develop. So this group we're thinking of authorizing to hire, they would actually do the work on those items, right? Not tell us how to do it, but some of these things, public engagement, they would facilitate making these 5 bullet points happen?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep, and these bullet points are what we have to do for that certified local government attainment. And this is, they approve that program, the State Historic Preservation Office, or SHPO, they approved this RFP. This is based on the grant that they awarded to us, but it was awarded without any financial guarantee.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? All right, thoughts? Well, let's start with the first one. Are we okay with the contractor that HPAC and staff recommends, the Chronicle Heritage? Or is anyone opposed to that?
Not opposed.
Okay, that one seems to be unanimous, was
Mhm.
Chronicle Heritage. And number 2, I'll just suggest an idea, and maybe that we wait for a month and a half just to see if we get this competitive one or not. And then it might have to either come back to us, I guess, or we just tell you right now that we wait a month and a half, and if not, pull the trigger. Maybe it's better
Well,
for it to
of
come
course,
back.
staff loves having direction like that, hey, if you hear no on the competitive grant, and if the other grant, if the funding doesn't come through, then staff has your preordained direction to just move forward. And then we don't, I mean, as much fun as this is to come to
It's
you.
great to see you.
It's
in it,
always
but I
kind of
think-
nice,
yeah, yeah.
it's nice knowing that, hey, the direction, the decision's been made, if we don't get funding. Because what if we hear tomorrow that the competitive grant was not awarded to Berthoud, then we could just go ahead and move forward.
Yeah, and like the micromobility, we've been waiting years on it. We can't, the federal government is kind of all over the place, non-politically right now, but it's all over the place. So this one from the National Park Service could be
Mhm.
unknown. Really.
And I will say, from a budgetary standpoint, this is a relatively low cost. We can certainly absorb this and make a mid-year budget adjustment. If we feel like it's necessary, we may be able to do that within our existing budgets, we'll have a better idea as we get a little farther into the year.
So, just an idea, would trustees feel okay that, we wait to hear from the competitive state grant, and if not, staff go ahead and self-fund this?
I
Anyone?
would say, did the Chronicle Fire just give us a timeline on how long the bid's good for? Usually they'll put in there, this is good for 90 days.
I do not know that answer. I'm sorry, I can't respond.
Okay, that's a good point. Maybe say
So-
either wait 90.
I would say that we wait 60 to 90 days, and then if we haven't heard from either grant, then we self-fund.
And I don't expect there would be any appreciable change, if any, to this bid amount. If there was, we would certainly come back to you and let you know. If the consultant felt like something had significantly changed and they wanted a significant amount more money, we'd probably just tell them no anyway.
Yeah.
But I think in this kind of work, it's different a little bit than construction work, right? Where material prices are changing and there's all kinds of, they're trying to balance jobs over the course of the year. They do try to balance workload for consulting firms, but it is a little bit different. There's not a lot of direct costs. It's staffing for them, right? It's staff
Yeah,
time
makes a lot of
and personnel allocation.
Trustee Wood?
So just because there's some specific action tasks that need to be completed, would you hold some of the compensation back to the end until the tasks were finally completed, or do you pay it up front?
Oh, no, we pay on an as-billed basis with a
Perfect.
not to exceed.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Thank you.
As performed.
I would support waiting to, I think the most frugal thing is to wait to see if we get the grant funding. And then if we get a definitive no, if we already have decided we're gonna give them the go-ahead, let's go at that time. That would be my suggestion to move
Good.
forward.
I like to, yeah, and then also, what about also up to 90 days?
I think once we have definitive answers from them, whether we receive it or not, that's sufficient.
Yeah, whatever comes first.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, whatever comes first.
If we get 2 no's in 30 days, why wait 90 days?
Right,
That's
yeah.
what I was trying to say.
Right, and if the NPS was not doing 90 days, then.
No.
Okay, we go ahead. Is that clear, or is that? you have
It
a
is, what I think I hear you saying is if we hear no funding from NPS to History Now, if we hear no to the competitive grant, I don't have to wait the 60 to 90 days, we just go and we'll self-fund. If we don't hear on Park Service funding, if we do hear no on the competitive grant, still need to wait 90 days.
To see if we get funding from
From
the
NPS, yeah.
Right.
That makes sense to me. Is that anyone?
Good.
The only thing I can think of is Oktoberfest is early October. So just counting back there, if we had to wait 90 days, and Oktoberfest is a really great community opportunity to get engagement and hear from people. And if we don't hear, this is basically June, July, August, September, then that consultant, we'd have to enter into that contract in September. That's gonna be really quick for them to have to jump and do, plan a community engagement event for Oktoberfest.
Okay, yeah, so 60 days gives them a month or.
I think 60 days is much more feasible, looking at the end product that we want to capture input from the public.
That makes sense, does that work?
That's helpful, thank you.
I like that. Good thinking.
45?
44, okay, that's a great idea.
Okay.
So we're good with, Chronicle Heritage, and then we're good with, the 2 grant processes otherwise going ahead on our own, self-funding.
Sounds good, 60 days.
60 days, yeah, thank you.
All right.
And related, I just wanted to thank you for including the committee in these decisions. I heard from 2 different members that they were evaluating the grant process and they took it very seriously. And it just made me think of you, so thank you for including them. And, yeah, really, them being engaged is awesome.
Oh, not a problem at all. It's lovely to have them, and it's great to have their input.
Great.
So.
Thank you. Awesome.
We do have a suggested motion that rolls all of that in.
Yeah, all you would have to do is add the 30 to it, right? Or the 60 to it. Anyone want to take a stab?
That's right. I move to award the Historic Preservation Plan Project to Chronicle Heritage, provided that the town not execute the contract for services until one of the following two outcomes occur. Funding from History Colorado or the State Historical Fund is secured, or after 60 days, if funding is not secured, town to include the award funding in a mid-year budget adjustment.
Beautiful. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, trustee Ayers has moved, trustee Wing has seconded. Is there any final discussion on this? Clerk, can we have a roll call vote, please?
Trustee Albrecht,
Yes.
trustee Wing,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Murphy,
Yes.
trustee Ayers,
Yes.
trustee Hardy,
Yes.
Mayor Karspeck.
Yes, all right, thank you. Finally, the Wilson Farm purchase contract. Back to you, Director Duncan.
This
Or
one's
that-
actually me, I think.
Oh,
So
sorry.
I apologize, that one
Sorry.
on your little script sheet there, that, yeah.
All right.
We're just checking to make sure
Everything
Ann's,
is printed.
make sure Ann's heart's still pumping. So, thank you, Mayor Karspeck and trustees. This is a project that we've discussed previously. I've been working on a contract for the potential acquisition of open space along Little Thompson River on a farm immediately at the southern terminus of Fifth Street, south of the Heritage Ridge subdivision. Thank you, Christian, for bringing that up. And east of the railroad tracks in County Road 15A, which is the same thing as First Street. So, if you look at the map, the road that runs north and south on the right side of your map is County Road 15A or First Street. It's all the same. This area is south of town, so it's in the county. It's different road designation, same road. You can see directly north of the property outlined in gray in kind of the large quarter section there on the kind of the bottom right corner of your screen, but that's Fifth Street that runs down past Ivy Stockwell and terminates at the southern end of Heritage Ridge into this farm. And then you can see there's a weird sliver of land south of Hillsdale Park. That's the area. You can see the trails. You can almost see it in green, the label that says Hillsdale Park on the map. There's that kind of strange sliver of land and then some gray property to the west or to the left side of the map. That extends all the way over to Berthoud Parkway, which is the north-south road on the left side of the map. What is represented here is primarily floodplain. It follows the Dry Creek corridor. Dry Creek runs underneath Berthoud Parkway. It comes from the west. It comes underneath 287, underneath Berthoud Parkway. It goes through Hillsdale Park, and then it turns and heads south down to the Little Thompson River, which is the southern border of this proposed open space acquisition. That's a really critical corridor from our perspective for long-range trail connection and access, because we have a trail system that connects to Hillsdale Park that's part of a 3.5-mile loop of trail on the southern side of town. This acquisition would take us down to the river. We own the property east of First Street, off the map here, but that's the Beefus farm that we acquired a year and a half ago or so, year ago. And then that connects to County Line Road via the Lewis Heritage Farm, which we also helped to fund the acquisition of. This would give us the opportunity to connect our trail system down to the Little Thompson River corridor and all the way over to County Line Road, which would connect north back up to Farmstead and then back into town. So this is kind of an important corridor for trail access. It's also a critical wildlife corridor. It's important floodplain. It has a lot of environmental resources, and it acts as a nice open space and agricultural buffer to the lands to the south, which is something the town board has repeatedly stressed as a priority. So this acquisition conceptually was identified in a grant that we submitted to Great Outdoors Colorado last year with your support that we were awarded earlier this year. That grant was for $1.13 million. I actually received the grant agreement, that draft, today. So I've just skimmed over it, haven't read it through it all, but it outlines the same scope of work that we proposed in our grant application, in which they approved. And that was to help fund the acquisition of the Shaw Farm, which is a couple miles to the east on County Road 5. That's a 105-acre farm, prime agricultural land, very senior water rights associated with that agricultural land, and a half mile of river frontage. So we've already closed on that property and would expect to get reimbursed for that acquisition through the grant process. We can also apply those grant funds to this acquisition. In your annual budget, you budgeted enough money to purchase both of these properties with support from that grant. So we already have money included in the budget to do this. If you choose to move forward, there are a couple things that will have to happen. This property is not currently annexed into the town. And in order to acquire a portion of this ground that we've outlined in gray, it's not the full farm. This would be subdivided off as a lot. And so you can see the white labels. The white labels that are hard to read on this small map, so I apologize, but those are lot designations, at least conceptually. In order to do that subdivision, the property would need to be annexed into the town. Otherwise, it would have to go through the county's subdivision process that we'd have no control over. If we annex the property, it is identified as future annexation development. The comprehensive plan has been for decades. But we could annex the property and then go through the subdivision process. All of those are required steps prior to closing. So that the developer that owns the land would have to go through annexation. They would have to get some subdivision done, probably through a minor subdivision process to create a few large tracts, including the areas outlined in gray. And then we would purchase those at a market rate. So we'd also be doing an appraisal. We've agreed to a price per acre subject to appraisal. That was just based on the price per acre that we paid for the Beavis farm across the street, which was also based on an appraisal. So that's a good starting point for us. But because this is it's not all floodplain, but there is a lot of floodplain, we would expect that price to be a little bit discounted. We'll see what that appraisal comes back at if you tell us to move forward. So I think that's a pretty good way, that's a pretty good amount of background information. The price as currently outlined or negotiated, I'm sorry, I have too many windows open. It's around $1.2 million. It's roughly $24,000 an acre. That is what the Beavis farm appraised for to the east, independent of the water rights associated with, so that was just for the land. Yeah, $1.248 million is what we would pay for this. Again, we got a $1.13 million grant, and you budgeted just under $2.8 million in our budget for the two properties, the Shaw Farm and this property.
Good.
So with that as way of background, we would recommend that you approve the contract to buy and sell real estate. We'd get under contract, we'd go through all the due diligence processes, all the land use actions that would be required for us to close. The developer could then initiate annexation subdivision to create these tracts of land. We'll have all the survey work and title work and appraisals done, and then we'll close when all of that due diligence work is complete.
Trustees, questions?
Yeah, I have a question. You lost me just on one piece. So the 1,248,000, that's all this gray area we see on the map, but then you talked about us, I thought you said purchasing other lots. That's where I got lost.
I apologize for not being clear. The other lots are just conceptually identified as how it would be subdivided. We would not acquire any, the only part we would acquire is what's in the dark.
That's exactly what I thought.
Yes.
Thank you.
You're correct.
If most of it is in the floodplain, the developer would have to dedicate it anyway, right?
No, they have no obligation to dedicate any of this. They wouldn't likely be able to develop it, but they absolutely can keep it and restrict public access and or make it part of their future subdivision, or not develop it at all and just keep it a private farm. So they don't have any obligation to dedicate this to the town.
Okay, but how on a development could you restrict public access? Oh, keep it in the county.
Even if it was in the town and it was privately owned land, they don't have to allow public access.
Really? So Vantage could legally say you can't come in?
No. Well, I don't know how they intend to develop the subdivision. But if it was, they could fence it all off and keep it for themselves as a private individual. It doesn't have to be part of the subdivision.
But again, we're just talking about where the white squares are, calling the lots out. That's the private part.
Right, right.
The rest would be public.
Well,
So
if we
the town-
purchased it, it would
if
be
we-
public and we
right.
would own it.
Yeah, yeah, right.
I guess just to clarify, I love open space. I like that.
Just
My
as a,
question is that the developer, I don't see the value, there's no value in building on this for him because it's in a floodplain.
it is possible to take it out of the floodplain through, map revisions, through fill. There are FEMA processes under which somebody can take land out of the floodplain. That happened in Heritage Ridge, for instance. There were portions of Heritage Ridge that were previously in the floodplain. They filed a letter of map revision. They did all the work necessary to raise that ground out of the floodplain and then developed on it. So just because it's in the floodplain today doesn't mean that it would have to be in the floodplain in the future. Portions of it would certainly remain in the floodplain, I'm sure. It's not like they can't build a 20-foot tall wall adjacent to the river and then develop 100% of the rest of it. But they could remove portions of this from the floodplain and actually probably wouldn't even need, in some cases, they probably don't need to even do fill work. Most of the floodplain is based on high-level survey data that was done after the 2013 flood. And we've already identified portions of the floodplain that are in town that do not, the survey data that the state used to create those new floodplain maps that we adopted actually aren't accurate. And so there are, 1 or 2 foot elevation differences between what the ground actually is and what their high-level survey data looks like. And so, like, there were some existing houses north of Hillsdale Park that ended up in the floodplain map, but that physically are not actually in the floodplain. And it was a very simple process to take those out of the floodplain for insurance purposes and other things. So there's portions of this that are probably not actually in the floodplain based on real elevation data, and then there are portions that could be taken out for development.
Yeah, just the MPO presentation that the floodplain map drastically was increased.
It was. And this does represent the much larger floodplain map that was adopted 3 or 4 years ago by the town, but that was prepared by the state and other regional jurisdictions after the 2013 flood.
Can you explain some of the arbitrary lines, why they did what they did instead of linear lines? Do you want a specific?
So the way that it's shaped roughly follows the floodplain. And then there's some areas that are not within the irrigated ag land that are kind of squared off. It just kind of goes with some of the existing farm operation, but there are areas that are irrigated farmland that are within that floodplain. Some of it was just, I think, a practical choice. Now, all of this would actually have to be formalized through a subdivision. So this is just a conceptual map of the property that we would intend to acquire. There is some floodplain on that northeast corner where there's a barn and the old livery stables from 100 years ago are on part of that property. There's a house there and other things that we intentionally excluded from the acquisition conceptually, that we wouldn't want to own another house.
Do you recall if Trails at Creekside roughed in any trails with a possible annexation when they designed their trail system? For instance, since the park is up here, and then, because I don't think they went north because it was private property at that point, but I think they roughed in some possible connections to the north and to the east. Do you know if those are able to be connected with any possible annexation or development?
If we owned it, it would be very simple, and you're correct in that they do have parks and trails on the north side of the property that could easily be connected to Hillsdale if we own that little sliver. Otherwise, they would have to acquire a trail easement from the current property owner, which has proven to be very difficult. The same is true to the east. There is intended to be a road and trail connection to the east from Trails at Creekview.
So the entrance to that westernmost lot, that would be accessed hypothetically
Sorry.
Trails at Creekside, not from the south or from I guess you can't go from the north.
It actually could be either one. there are ways that you could extend Fifth Street all the way down to Trails of Creekview, without crossing the river. It would have to cross Dry Creek. And then it would make sense to make some pedestrian trail connections along that same corridor. But that's something we may or may not want to do as a town, and you guys would have to review all that as part of their future neighborhood master plan and subdivision process. But in either case, the connections from Hillsdale would run through land that we owned in the gray, all the way down to the river. It wouldn't be, there wouldn't be any impediment from Trails at Creekview or this developer, even if both of them developed. We would still have the ability to connect Hillsdale Park down to the river through this alignment.
Other questions? I support open space. I guess with the annexation being kind of a discretionary or negotiation, it would seem like either our board or a future board would ask or could make a condition that if you want to annex, you'd include the floodplain.
I suppose you could in a discretionary action. I don't know that you can do that as a taking. I don't know. I guess Attorney Smith would have to weigh in whether or not you could require them to dedicate land above and beyond what our code requires as part of annexation. Maybe you can. I don't know. That's a good question. And maybe one that maybe Attorney Smith doesn't want to answer tonight without off the top of her head, but
that could potentially drastically affect in the areas that are outside the floodplain, we buy those or something like that. I'm just saying, this is a big number. Even
I fully expect it to come down significantly. As an aside, the $24,000 an acre number was for the entire Beefus farm, including the floodplain. In the appraisal report for the Beavis farm, the appraiser talked about discounting floodplain by a minimum of 20%. I would expect this to be relatively the same. I wouldn't expect this floodplain land to be valued anywhere near $24,000 an acre, but we have to do the appraisal to confirm that. And if that appraised value comes in at $15,000 or $18,000 an acre, we obviously wouldn't purchase the land unless they agreed to a lower price.
other questions? Anyone in the audience wish to speak to this? Come to the front,
Talk to
please.
it, that's my developer. I
Please
can
come.
share it.
Please come to the front, to the podium now. Thank you.
Sure.
You're no stranger, to the new podium, it's not your fault,
Oh,
we
so
changed.
sorry.
Yeah.
I didn't plan on speaking, I wanted to hear the marketing, but I was showing home. So this is actually Lewis Cross, our very first person who lived here. So we're gonna call it, if we do move forward, Lewis Ranch. We actually already are gonna have a plow and anyways. And it'll probably, there is high flood water, I'm so sorry, I'm very tired. High water table, so there would be no basements, and they would be smaller lots, trying to make it a little bit more affordable, attainable. So they'd be mostly ranch homes, probably custom on-site, CB signature, just a little bit higher level, but smaller, so quality, so people could downsize and buy something somewhat affordable. And that's what we're looking at. That's who I'm talking to for builders. But we really are hopeful of the town buying it, because then that does help the riparian system. It does, as you mentioned, has that whole trail system. And then as it connects, he owns part of it. So, I mean, and I appreciated what the mayor said when he was talking about Harvest West, getting those sidewalks done, because I'm all about unified trails. But anyways, that's the whole point here, is to connect our whole town. That's what the master plan has always been about, is helping our town be connected so we could all be healthy mentally and physically, utilizing our trails and being in nature, and then keeping our riparian system going. So all I wanted to say is it's exciting to connect, somewhat to heritage. That's Kansas Avenue right down there. And currently we're gonna think of utilizing that as an equestrian center. So we're gonna maintain that as a farmland. The main entrance would be right from, most likely, where Kansas is, that street, I can't recall it. But the whole point is to develop a little bit smaller lots. As Ann will let us know, I'm sure there's diversity that we have to provide. But we're ready to do that. We want to do it a little bit smaller, but higher level homes. So that's our plan. And we're definitely marketing it, the history of the land. I mean, it's our first settler here. So it's a valuable piece of land and very cool to have the riparian system there. And I'd love to do something historical with that farm. I just don't know how we're gonna do that. So that was really interesting about the HVAC too. So anyways, that's, I'm blabbing on, but that's pretty much it. A little bit smaller lots, more attainable. Would love to have a riparian system maintained and a walking trail connected to all the way, as I think Chris had wants, all the way to I-25, I think, is that riparian system, right? The little T.
That's something the town board's identified in their parks plan. Yep,
Yeah, okay,
Parks and Trails
so the town wants, so we would love to be a part of that. I'm gonna start talking.
Thank you.
And one additional bit of information I think is probably relevant to the conversation. So I have expressly told the developer that there would be no credit for open space given for a future subdivision. If the town pays market price, then they would still be obligated to deliver all the parks and open space that would be required of any other subdivision in town with the remaining land. So
But if the town didn't, then he could use this as dedication.
he could.
Just, we all know who you are. You're awesome. Do you mind just taking
I
the
am
record? who you
so
are?
sorry, you guys. Christine Torres, 3930 Arley Drive, for about another year.
All right, you rock. Thank you.
And sign up for pickleball.
Okay, anyone else in the audience? All right, I'll bring you back to the board.
Oh. I apologize. One reason, Clerk Smore, would you mind putting that map back up on the screen? I should have pointed this out before. These are two separate properties. The little sliver of land that runs south of Hillsdale Park, thank you, starting there and heading west, that is a separate parcel owned by the same family but different people, I think, if I recall correctly. That was not part of our original grant application, so that's part of the reason why the number is a little bit bigger. That land was not envisioned as being acquired, but it is valuable to us as a town, and as an extension of Hillsdale Park primarily, and then making that trail connection and that kind of stuff to Trails of Creekview. So when the developer got that property under contract, we asked them to add that portion in to the acquisition. So the original grant application identified only the stuff east of kind of where the cursor is, starting there and heading that way. So it is a little bit bigger number than even we had envisioned originally, but we felt like that would be a good addition to our parks and open space as well.
I don't imagine there's any conversations along this line, but has you thought of any conversations about just quizzing the developer, or just outright buying these developable portions?
Yes, I think he'd be willing to sell 100% of it to us.
Just the cost.
It depends on what it appraises for. And if it appraises for something we think we could afford, I would come back to you and suggest that we buy it all. I think there's a lot of value to this farm. It would not come with water rights, but it would, it is a beautiful farm. I think it's a great access to the river corridor as a whole from town. It has the potential to be a beautiful park.
We're talking about the undeveloped, the developable portions.
100%,
Yeah, okay.
yeah. And our GOCO application did not require conservation of anything other than what's outlined in gray. So we could do whatever we wanted with all the clear boxes. We could develop a park there without any conservation impact. So if the price is right, I'd certainly like to come back to you and talk to you about buying the whole thing.
Any other thoughts, trustees, questions? Got to make a formal motion here. Anyone? Okay. Opposed or
This is involving chomping at the bit to continue to preserve this corridor, so this is exciting movement.
Yeah, thank you. This is exciting. I'm coming off really critical. I love open space. This is awesome. I'm just wondering if there's other ways that we could save some money and see if others might dedicate it or have to. But anyway, let's vote. I think at the end of the day, I'm for this, so. Anything else, or anyone want to move?
I'd just like to thank you, Administrator Kirk, for pursuing these deals and along with the work of staff on kind of making this happen. And I'd happily make the motion to approve the contract to buy and sell real estate between the town of Berthoud and HT Land Partners 400 LLC.
Second.
Second.
Mayor Pro Tem Murphy has moved on contract. Trustee Ayers has seconded. Clerk, can we have a roll call vote, please?
Trustee Wing,
Yes.
Trustee Hardy,
Yes.
Trustee Ayers,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Murphy,
Yes.
Trustee Albrecht, Mayor Karspeck.
Yes. Excellent. Well, that concludes our regular board meeting tonight. We can move on to reports, and we can start with Trustee Wing.
Yeah, I was copied on an email, just wanted to thank the mayor and Chris for working with Prairie Star. Sounds like you guys really stepped up. They were super impressed with the attention you gave them and listening to them and really working with them on solutions. And you did that pretty quick, because I know they didn't come to us that long ago, so I thought that was pretty commendable.
That was Mayor Karspeck that got all organized. I just got to participate. So I
You
Mm-hmm.
made me look good, so thanks. You did God's
good
work.
team effort.
Yeah, good team effort.
And then there was, I just had a commentary on this email for today, and a resident was complaining about the noise, the road noise on 287, because they have a townhouse right on it. And you don't build a home on a fairway if you don't want balls in your yard. And so you can't build a house on a major highway and expect there not to be any noise. So, I think these kind of two things go together. Where there was something where there could be a solution, you guys stepped up and really worked with it. There are some things where there aren't solutions. There just aren't. You have to live with kind of what they have. And a resident came to me and was talking about a development, and the conversation was circling around affordable housing. And I just saw this response, I think, to that person from the town. It says the town does not currently have an affordable housing or workforce housing program, nor does the town offer current incentives for such development. The town does not currently offer a free reduction for, and I just got a little confused because I thought we'd had a couple meetings where we said we did have some things along those lines, where we did have some things we could do for affordable housing and diversity. Do you understand my question? Can you help me with that?
So the town currently has an incentive program, ordinance 847, for nonprofit organizations, not for for-profit builders.
Okay.
So we currently do not have an incentive program to incentivize the development of affordable or attainable housing,
Okay.
other than offering 2 fee reduction building permits a year.
And when we had that big presentation, it was pretty complex, and it was on that subject. So that would have excluded for-profit developers or except for the last thing you just mentioned about.
So
some
no,
fees.
so that housing diversity plan has an action plan, and that housing diversity plan was just adopted a month ago. And so there are a lot of quick wins that staff has committed to bringing solutions to those within a year of adoption of that master plan. We just don't have those yet. So we are looking at incentivizing all development in the town of Berthoud, not just for affordable or attainable housing, but making the development review process more simple for everyone. So that wouldn't preclude high-end housing to have a more simplified process, as well as attainable or affordable housing to have a simplified process.
Okay. And then I was gone for a couple weeks on vacation, but I think last week or the week before, District 2, we hosted.
We did.
Any just highlights of that, or was there anything specific to?
Mayor Karspeck, do you want to
Chris
cover
did a
that? That's
fantastic
great.
presentation. He called it showing the baby album around, that when you come to someone's house, they have to show you the babies. So it was a fantastic presentation. I gave a very brief speech. Mayor Pro Tem was there. And I started a little bit late. The vendor presentation was a little long, so it left the CML portion at the end rather short. But it was good. And overall, just very positive feedback from the other communities. Thank you for hosting us. We've never seen TBC before. Great job in all your recreation. Freaking mayor of Johnstown even took down an ice bucket challenge proposed by Windsor. So right at TPC golf course, they dumped freezing water on his head in support of mental health. Now I regret not doing it with him because I have no excuse. So it was very good. And Chris did a fantastic job,
And then the last
especially
thing,
when I asked him on the spot. So
last thing, I don't know if it was a Chamber of Commerce breakfast that they have, the one at TPC.
yeah.
But again, I just wanted to commend Will and Chris. You guys did a really nice job representing the town at that. And I thought the presentation, whoever did that, that you gave was very, very, very well done.
Thank you.
Told a great story, so.
I appreciate
that. Thanks.
Okay. Trustee Hart.
Nothing really to report, but I did have a question about, I saw some chatter online about Loveland not having their 4th of July fireworks this year.
That is what I've been told.
So have we prepared ourselves for the
Does it say
massive
why?
overflow that we could potentially have in our?
We just close down the town and the whole thing has to be walkable.
This is yeah, I mean, short of shutting the gates, I'm not sure what to do other than obviously, you know, our public safety team knows, our public works crew knows that that's highly likely to be very popular. We made an intentional choice to limit advertising this year because I don't know that we can accommodate 75,000 people showing up trying to watch fireworks.
I know, I was thinking that.
But, you know, whoever wants to come and enjoy the fireworks show, it's always been open to the public. You find a parking space and hopefully come find some spot at the park if you can. Otherwise, watch it from a distance. But
You'll have people parked out to 287. I mean, literally you will.
well, and there are areas of town, we did last year, we blocked off a lot of street parking and our sheriff's deputies were out running people off who were trying to park in places where they shouldn't be parking. And we'll do a little bit extra this year. We do have some room still. The park itself at Wagner was very full last year. If you had the opportunity to go, it was a lot of fun. There's still a ton of room at Turner. And so assuming that the school district of Gingham gives us permission to kind of promote that as a place to watch.
The turning track, it's actually closer.
It's a great spot.
Walking distance.
Yeah, and there is parking over there and, you know, so there's still a little capacity, but not for the whole city of Loveland. So hopefully they'll find other great fireworks shows to go to too. We're not the only one happening, but we do expect a significant increase in traffic.
Any thoughts about rewarding smaller vehicles like golf carts and having dedicated spots?
That's a good idea. Yeah.
Well, I'm not biased or anything, but just thought I'd throw it out
Or
there.
just get all the birthday buggies guys to go. People walking closer.
A lot of folks from town do walk and ride bikes because it's easier to get home afterwards if you don't have to jump in the car. And so maybe we can incentivize folks to walk and ride a bike and provide some, you know, free swag to those that do. And that's a good suggestion. We'll talk about how to make that work.
Maybe we'll run bats for people farther out. So if you have to park a ways off, I don't know. I'm just thinking on top of it. Do we need, or do you know if we're planning on staffing up a little bit more than? Okay, great. Yeah.
Very much so.
You guys are on it.
Okay.
Cool. Great question.
And then, I was gonna bring this up at the last meeting, but Mike Cook beat me to it on Facebook. I was gonna ask about our fire hydrants not being painted, and he's already won his election and brought up that he's gonna start painting those things around town and ask if you wanna come help, cause like, I guess, I was gonna ask you who owns them, town owns them,
Town owns the fire hydrants.
so.
Really?
Just wanted to throw that shout out here. You guys wanna go paint some fire hydrants? I already saw May jump in. She's willing to go paint about 50 of them, she said.
I'm not sure about that, but sure.
We have used seasonals in the past.
No, they're gonna be yellow with the blue cap.
Okay, that's what they are right now.
I think he was also activating citizens to point out the
Which
ones
in need,
that were in
which
the
the worst
most
ones.
need, yeah.
There's some that are just completely rusted. That I was riding my bike around town like, oh, what's up with our fire hydrants? Then Mike posted it. He's like, oh, good. It's not just me.
Can I ask a related question to that, those fire hydrants? So I see like, if they're building a new house, the construction guys will just come up and they'll hook right into the hydrant
Oh.
and spray down and compact, and I've seen tankers get filled up too. I was
So
just wondering about that.
developers and builders can get a hydrant meter from the town, that they pay us a rate to use water out of the hydrant for construction activities. If they are not hooked up to a hydrant meter, they are stealing water, we will, pursue them anytime we find out.
Okay,
So anytime our, water crews are out or, code enforcement or field staff, they generally know to look. So if somebody's illegally hooked up to a fire hydrant stealing water, we will pursue them for that legally. But you can legally hook up to a fire hydrant if you come get a hydrant meter from us first.
and that's potable water?
It is. We would prefer to use non-potable water for all construction activities, but there's no current way to do that
Yeah.
easily. And even if we set up a turnout with non-pot water, you'd have to have the trucks coming and going from that location, which would increase a lot of heavy truck traffic on the road, which is not ideal either. So hydrants are usually the best way to tackle that.
I had a question. A couple months ago, there was a question from one of the restaurant owners in town about possibly pursuing a food truck policy.
Mhm.
Is there any update on that, or?
The only update is that we don't have an update, so we have not prioritized that yet as a policy development.
Have you heard anything else? Any other, I guess, complaints or pressure in one way or another?
Nope, not just from the one business owner.
I've gotten a few of those over the time too, because I always see them, they say, are they paying tax, are they paying fees? Always my question.
We do work to make sure that they pay taxes.
That's all I had.
Trustee Albright.
I did want to bring up the meeting with the LBAR, the Loveland Berthoud Area Realtors, and some good stuff from that, just hearing from that group. But, and I think everyone will understand this, but there was a couple comments afterward from realtors about the issues with Metro Tax and trying to, as people understand Metro districts, the difficulty it is to get people into homes in Berthoud, and as that becomes more and more of a difficult thing for them. And so just, I know we all know the issues, but it's reinforcing to hear that there is an issue and we still have to keep being creative. And my favorite comment, I have to admit, was someone had said that they wish other municipalities would come watch how Berthoud runs their meetings because it's so respectful. And so I just thought I'd bring that back to you guys because I thought that was really cool. They said we'd set the example for other people around us. So kudos to you all and being awesome. I did have one request. I was thinking, I know we've talked about the Berthoud Market before, and I know we call it Berthoud Market intentionally, as not to imply that it's a farmer's market, but I do think there's desire in our community to support local farmers and to maybe playing on the garden spot ag aspects of Berthoud. I think it would be more palatable for people to participate if the vendor spots were free or minimal to farmers or people vending like any type of produce, fresh produce that's local. I think that would be something the town would have to, absorb the cost of whatever that fee they would have otherwise gotten, but I think it will drive more people there and make it more successful and make it more of an asset event to our community to bring people downtown. I think the benefits would outweigh the cost if we were to compensate, if we were to not have to charge for the vendor spots, if that makes sense, and make it more of a farm-based market. So I know things are already underway, but I did want to just throw that out there as consideration maybe for next year or future years as something that we invest in. And I don't know if you guys have any thoughts on that or have heard from others about their feedback, but that's just kind of based on some feedback I've been fielding. I had July 3rd on my list too, based on Loveland's. That's a huge shift. We're gonna see a lot of people here, and I think you're right in probably not advertising it so our locals get first dibs, but that's gonna be a big deal. And one thing too that's just been on my mind a lot is the move for Oktoberfest and Berthoud Day to go back to Town Park. While it's historic and amazing to have it there, I have so many security concerns with the amount of people that are gonna be in that tiny space. And just to give an example of the first Berthoud Day we were here, my son was 3, he just turned 15 now. And we were at Town Park and he got lost because I put him on the playground And I turned around to go sit on a park bench and he was like nowhere to be found. And it was the Berthoud PD at the time, they were all looking for him to find the little guy. He just followed some other lady thinking it was his mom out of the park. But it just reminded me, with that big playground there, you're gonna have so many kids that are just running on that playground. And so I just would ask that the town would consider, when in discussions with the chamber for future events, to really consider the security and, how defensible is that space? Because it's really hard to monitor what's going on there. So that's just my only concern with those upcoming events, is how to really watch the kids and keep our town safe from anything happening. And then Youth Advisory Commission wrapped up for the season, because they decided to take summers off, and so they're now gonna be in recruitment mode. Coming into August, since the chair graduated, so she's off, and then, I think a few more are gonna reapply, but we have several seats open, so if you guys know of anybody who's excited to join Youth Advisory Commission, please tell them to go and just, the application's online anytime, and they could fill it out, and then we'll review in August, I think.
It was a very impressive group of young people. Speaking with them, I was really impressed. Did you get any feedback from us talking?
Yeah, they loved it. It was the most exciting event of the year for them, and it was actually the feedback of the Greeley kids in Loveland. They loved it, and so I think they're gonna take the torch and host it next year. One of those groups will, and then Berthoud will still be the logistical backbone. So our kids will still get experience in kind of leading the event, but others will. So it's initiated something new and regional that didn't exist before, and I think Trustee Hardy actually had mentioned something like them doing something like an event like this. So kudos to you on bringing that up, and thanks for speaking at it. It was really successful.
That was great.
Yeah, they were super inspired. And then there was one more thing, I'm sorry. Oh, I wanted to bring up, we had done that tour around downtown and talked about the different, when we talk about future development, what that looks like and what type of housing or driveways or alley loading. And I had thought about a little bit more about how difficult alleys are to maintain for the town, especially based on a recent comment we received from a citizen. And not only are they difficult for the town to maintain, but they take up a lot of square footage in a development. And so I'd like us to consider, and this is just me, my thoughts, I'd like us to consider, we talked about the setback driveways for future developments. So you still have that aesthetic of the house being more forward facing, and that's what you see of the home. But just as I'm hearing, so many concerns about alleys, I do think if we have only alley loaded product in the future, we're gonna continue to find ourselves in huge maintenance issues with those developments, and it makes it surprisingly more crowded, I think. So it's just something I was thinking about that I wanted to bring up, and I think that's it.
Thank you.
Oh, and Memorial Day was awesome at the cemetery. If you guys ever get a chance to go, it's really impactful to hear from, especially families who were Gold Star families that lost Berthoud kids to action, that have fought for this Berthoud specifically in their country. So it's really sentimental and amazing to be connected to those people in our community. So anytime you get to attend those, please do.
Thank you, and thank you for attending that. Didn't go this year, but. Mayor Pro Tem. Oh, yeah. Mayor.
Yeah, just piggybacking on kind of the farmer's market comments, that was kind of my hope, partly in the sustainability plan, was to have a component where we take a look at how can we help out kind of local produce and farm vendors along with kind of local craftsmen, kind of a market situation. So I'd be definitely interested in talking about that in the future. We had our tree committee meeting on the 19th. The Arboretum was kind of the main topic of discussion. We're looking at 800 trees right now for the Arboretum. And to put that in perspective, our staff handles 1,000 now town-wide. So it's a significant increase in their duties. So they're kind of mentally gearing up for what that kind of looks like. Also kind of looking at the species that we've kind of mulled around for the Arboretum. arborist furnace has kind of looked through a lot of what they have. Some of the species are really kind of exotic and out there and stuff. There's already kind of been discussions on what's going to be successful out there. What does it look like if we kind of dial things back, which would probably look closer to maybe 600 trees and stuff. But beyond that, there's definitely general support for kind of some sort of sponsorship for the tree component. Aside from that, wanted to talk about possibly having a joint session. Thank you, Administrator Kirk, for kind of bringing up some options. I'm open to entertaining either, I guess. And considering our point or our place in the process, you know, the more I think about it, maybe it is just better to have port and tree committees come in and just share their comments with us, so we can just straight up incorporate them or not at this phase versus a joint session. I don't know how everyone else feels.
Personally, I think either is good.
I really enjoy the joint. I mean, we only have done that once, but it was so effective to hear directly from them and have them really advocate for what they're seeing. I thought that was really, I know it could maybe take longer, but I do think if that there's a way to make it more, you know, concise, I think that really helped me hear from them.
That email you sent out, a really good question. I looked at the map, it looked like, has it been scaled back from an earlier iteration? Because it looked much simpler than I thought, a more complex than I had seen earlier, so I was just curious about that. But
So, yeah, that's definitely part of the discussion we want to talk about.
Okay, I'm open to either one too.
Okay.
For what it's worth, I only heard good things from the last joint meeting with Port. They really enjoyed the direct communication. So I'm sure they would be down for email.
And I think the question is, do you want to have a dedicated separate meeting, or do you want to invite them to come and participate in your regular meeting for that agenda item and give them some extra time to participate?
Separate.
Okay.
This is a big one.
Yeah. So that you're aware, we're about 60% of the way done with the construction drawings based on all the port committee and tree committee feedback we've received over the last year and a half. So I hope that all of their feedback has been incorporated into the design that's been presented a few different times. So love to hear it. We do need to have that done soon if we want to have a joint meeting because we expect the plans to be 90% done in July. And so we're getting rapidly to a place where significant changes will be costly. And so we've been kind of working down that road. You know, if it's a tweak here or a tweak there, or it's a, hey, we have some areas that we simplified out of the project, we want to put those back in, or we have some areas we want to further simplify, that's probably not too bad. But significant relocation of the puzzle pieces would be pricey, so just so that we're aware. But we can look for a date to schedule that. This might be a good time to bring it up. June 24th is what I suggested in my email. It occurred to me afterward that might be a problem because that is CML. And we actually have board candidate interviews to replace Trustee Kurtz's seat scheduled for June 24th. And we also have an annexation petition that is scheduled for public hearing that night as well. But that is the first night of CML, and 3 of the trustees are signed up to go. So that's my fault.
I think it's unconventional. I have to use the facility real quick. So
yeah, please do, yeah.
Report goes straight to you, not here.
No, yeah, if that's okay with the board, we'll just take.
Do that, I'm sorry.
You're good.
Okay.
scheduled a break in there, but anyway, I'm trying to work on how I hydrate so it doesn't happen, and obviously I failed. Thank you.
It's all good.
Administrator Cook, I interrupted. Oh, we're better. Yeah, okay.
It's all good. No, I was gonna bring it up, could I recommend, meeting on the 16th at our tree committee, which would be 5:30 on Monday? Is that doable for everyone? I know it's really premature to,
What day is that again?
Monday the 16th,
June?
yeah,
Evening meeting.
that would be the tree committee's regular meeting on Monday.
Somebody
We'll
will
have
send
the
something
tree
out.
committee there.
Somebody will send out a
I don't know
Yeah.
if you guys can all attend, we'll have to see about port and stuff, but.
I feel like the process would be tricky. So I
Yeah.
feel like we're hijacking their meeting. You know what I mean? And I don't want to. Does that make sense?
I mean,
Like it would be different if we were kind of leading the meeting and they were having input, but if they're leading the meeting, I would feel like I'm inappropriately asserting comments. Does that make, I don't
I
want
would
to muddy
agree.
their
Yeah,
decision.
I would agree with that, because then they're telling us what to do, but then if we say something that contradicts them, then they can't tell us.
Then we're telling them what to tell us to do.
Right.
Yeah, I
mean,
don't.
I guess we could detach it from the meeting and hold a joint session before or after, probably after. Would that be more doable?
Could it even be a study session and it's not formal?
no, all of it possible. I don't share that concern that you guys have. I think that they want this, but, I do see your point. So I don't think a special meeting would be, or a study session is inappropriate on Monday.
I think a study session's fine. You guys could choose to schedule that whenever it made sense for you.
You wanna do that?
The Monday before their meeting? Or-
No, do that day, just earlier or later.
Oh, that is.
Later
Monday.
would be
Got it.
probably good.
Later is preferable. What time do you guys usually wrap up?
Probably 6:30. I mean, we could be wrapped up by then, I would
Okay,
think.
that would actually makes a lot of sense to keep it at 6:30.
You wrapped up at 6:30?
Yeah, the meeting begins at 5:30. We'd probably be done by 6:30, I would assume, with regular business. This is kind of the
Yeah,
main
yeah.
topic. So I think I'd be okay with that. I mean, we'd have to reach out to court.
Okay.
Is that
And would
workable?
that include Port?
Why don't we reach out to Port and see if that works for
Let's
their
vote
group?
that as a tentative date.
Did you say?
Does that
Yeah,
work?
we'll do that as staff.
Okay.
And reach out to the Port Committee and see if that works for them for a joint meeting.
Okay.
You're saying Monday, the 16th at 6:30.
Yeah.
And then the primary scope or goal of that meeting, would staff provide a presentation on kind of the plan and then, or do you just want to hear their feedback directly? Just so I know what I ask our team to prepare for too.
I would argue that we would like a brief status check of kind of where everything's at and stuff. I think everyone's kind of aware of what's going on, but I think just a brief update would be sufficient, and then taking comment, I guess.
Okay.
If that works?
Yep.
Okay. Aside from that, I was gonna bring up the vacancy, but, yeah, that's all I've got right now.
Great, thank you. Just wanted to thank you for bringing that up, Trustee Wing, and I just wanted to second, Chris, I really appreciate your involvement with all your time commitments already to stay for Prairie Star. And I think your presentation really helped align what our responsibilities are. And I also heard really positive feedback about that, so sounds like you're already working with Stephanie, that might be a possible model for other developments. Yeah, that turned out great, 28 members showed up. Thank you for bringing that up. I thought you did great too. Thank you. Just want to put just a slight plug in the board's ears, and maybe, or staff too, something to consider. Our golf cart, low-speed vehicle community is increasing. And there's already been some talks about how to incorporate their needs into new developments. And really the only thing I can think of that they need to get to different places is the speed reduction to 35. That's the state law for golf carts, 35 or less. So I just wanted to Put that in your ear, as we look at these new developments, that try to find ways to lower the speed at the same time, or other ways that they could get around. It is growing, so it's neat to see in the new communities that they come to town and then realize that they can ride a cart around. And I know there's opposition too, but just wanted to throw that out there. If it's environmentalism and stuff like that we're trying to promote, this would really help out.
Wait,
I would
what-
even
so what's
go-
your point?
I would even go one step further, and I would honestly support, this would be the future if everybody agrees, but designated routes.
I was gonna say
Like
that too.
4th Street or something is the designated low-speed route. Maybe not 4th Street, because that goes all the way up, but just to make
Like a
that.
trail almost for golf carts. Like
Yeah,
A route just for them.
yeah, like an on-street designated route that goes north, south, east, west.
What is it now? They can go anywhere?
Well, yeah, so you're trying to restrict it, because right now we can go anywhere. You're just
You
trying
can
to
go on the trails.
No, anywhere in town, though.
Any
You're saying
roads.
designated
No,
areas.
no, I don't mean designated where it's only available, but try to funnel people into a particular area so that the
Safe
drivers are more aware of, hey, I'm going to see a golf cart on this road as opposed to, or something. Right, so like a Welsh or like a 5th Street, that there's signage so that people are expecting them as opposed to just them showing up on.
Oh, okay, so kind of like bikes, you can bike anywhere, but yeah, this is a
But
more
there's a
efficient.
designated.
Gotcha.
What was your point about the speed limit? I didn't-
State just requires that any golf cart the speed limit has to be 35 miles per hour.
Or lower?
Yeah, and a golf cart itself can only go up to 25, but they can drive on lanes that are 35.
Oh, got it.
But like you can't get to the bike park right now because
It
there's no
goes
way to get
45,
yeah,
doesn't
yeah,
it?
or to the golf course, because County Road 1 is 45. Not County Road 10. So a little bit, maybe, if it is going on, which I know in areas it is, maybe we could make it less illegal by looking at our speed limits.
I'd be in favor of looking at all of our roadways to say, could this be golf cart accessible? And should it be, so that we can increase connectivity and safety?
Well, I think it's great.
I
Yeah,
mean,
but-
it feels right, because we're kind of a golf community in a sense, but we could really promote that as a benefit of Berthoud, that you could get around on a golf cart safely and at slow speeds, so people are safer.
Do they have to be licensed?
What?
Do you have to have license for it?
You just need to have a driver's license, but not.
No, but I mean, no license plate
No,
and or no like a sticker like a dirt bike or an ATV.
just a yellow tag or just a orange triangle.
Yeah, right, okay, great.
Oh, it sounds like, just something to keep in mind, I don't know, if we want to. Okay, great, thanks.
We
Yeah,
have the most golf carts and chickens per capita.
I think we should shoot for that, and at the CML meeting, the Lions mayor was going off on
True.
how many golf carts they had, it made me competitive, that, wait a minute, we're the golf cart community, not Lions. Also, Estes is getting a carousel, at the
Farmers market.
CML meeting, Estes, Stanley got recently bought out, they're doing a big expansion
Oh.
for kids, like a Willy Wonka type
Wow.
big thing, it's millionaires that's going in, along with a arts, cultural thing. And then, the mayor was happy to say they're getting a carousel, which is,
Oh, what?
yeah, I'm excited, but also very, very angry with you type thing. So, anyway, that was another thing.
Could be on Craigslist for carousels.
Dang it.
Well, we got one, we just got
Nobody
it.
listens.
Anyway, that's all I had, so thank you.
You had mentioned an email about metro districts and using the pool. I can tell you that Huron Lakes certainly, this time does not allow their pool to the public.
Yeah, so when I Googled this, it said Heron Lakes no, it said Vantage Limited, but then it sounds like Vantage, if you talk to them, they say no. Thank you for bringing this
Right.
up. So, yeah, it'd be nice, Administrator Kirk, I don't know if you had a chance to respond to that email, but just something, maybe you could
I
give us
did.
an update on, oh, you did, okay.
But there, I don't have much of an update for you, other than, we have some limited, feedback on what we think state law requires for facilities that are funded with tax exempt municipal bonds through the Metro District versus what Vantage is actually doing, which I don't have information on yet and have not gotten a response back from their district manager, who in fairness, I only reached out to recently, so that was not right after the Prairie Star meeting. It's possible, I didn't understand from her email if they said, no, you cannot buy a membership, or no, you cannot access the facility on a daily basis.
That was my question.
I think those are two very different things, and her email was specific to a membership. And so I don't think they're obligated to provide memberships to
Right.
people outside
But
of the
maybe a
community,
day
but
pass.
maybe they can buy a day pass and maybe that's not
Mm.
what they're looking for. So I don't know. I think there's some clarity I'd like from the district. And then I think the district also, at least as I understood from her email, she said that the district didn't fund the pool, that the HOA did. That's
It
it.
might have been my email, because I was
Oh,
saying,
okay.
if HOA funds it, then I can see how we don't have a right, but if
Yeah.
a Metro funds it, then we might have a right.
And that would likely be true. So if the HOA, which they do have and is separate and independent from, if it wasn't funded through the district through tax exempt bonds, then they would have no obligation to open it to the public, I don't believe. So I think we're looking for some of that clarity directly from the district. I just don't have it yet.
Vantage and Huron Lakes bonds are issued together as one.
One
and-
Metro.
Uh-huh. No, not one Metro, one bond. Their bonds are, they're combined. The Metro district
I
combined.
thought they were
into
both Berthoud Heritage Metro District.
They are, they're all part of the same metro district, but they are separate sub-districts of the same district.
They're separate districts. I wouldn't call them sub-districts. They're
So I think they are legally sub-districts of the same Berthoud Heritage Metro District.
That was the impression I was under.
It sounds crazy, but I'm fairly confident that's true. I don't think I'm speaking out of turn on that.
District 2 is its own Metro district.
I believe it's a sub-district of Berthoud Heritage Metro District 1. Or it's a sub-district of the Berthoud Heritage Metro
Never,
District.
okay, I've never seen that language used in anything I've read. But
I think
Right.
they very much present them as different entities, and as sub-districts, they are different in some ways. But I believe they are all under the umbrella of the Berthoud Heritage Metro
they
District.
are under the umbrella.
They're all part of the
There's
same,
an operating district.
they're all part of the same metro district,
In the, s-
Same control district.
and they are using,
Either way, there's some governmental connection.
oh, well, there's an operating district which controls everything. Yes, that's
Okay,
true.
yeah.
But they are distinct, different, you might weigh on this, government entities, each district is.
With a different governing board.
Yes.
that's true, sub-districts do have different governing boards.
Yeah,
Well-
I know they get 15% off at the TPC golf course.
25.
25 for a Vantage member? No, yeah, if you're Vantage, you also get a discount at the clubhouse.
Yeah,
So I always thought that was,
it's,
anyway, I'm just trying to exploit what you own, Brett, just so we all can use it. No, okay, thank you for that clarification, Administrator Cook.
And I will say I'm 95% confident I'm correct about that. It's been a long time since we looked at the Berthoud Heritage Metro District from a formation perspective, but I believe that districts 1 through 17 are all sub-districts of the district. One is the control district and 2 through 16 are all sub-districts.
Districts.
They're districts.
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah,
With intergovernmental
with
agreements.
intergovernmental.
that's
yeah.
exactly right. Yes.
And I think we may be speaking semantics, but they are, yeah. I call them sub-districts, but not that they are subordinate to, other than through intergovernmental agreements, they have their own board of directors and all those things, yeah.
Okay, so we're working on the Metro amenity thing still, so we're waiting on the the manager of.
I'd like them to give us that information directly.
Why they're denying, or what, okay. And we asked about day passes versus memberships in particular, because they might be trying to be a little sneaky.
I did ask them for clarity about that.
Thank you. Any update with the Hammond trees?
No.
Okay. Do we foresee an update?
I hope so, yeah. I still need to connect with their district manager as well.
Okay. All right, that's all my, thank you. Turn it over to you.
Application deadline for the trustees for, just for your information, if you're not already aware, is June 12th. And then, as I mentioned before, we had previously scheduled or intended to do applicant interviews on the 24th. And that's my fault for not recognizing that the first day of CML is the 24th. In the past, we've not had board meetings the week of CML because several members are gone, and so we don't typically have a quorum. So I just botched that one in terms of timing. The alternative may be that we could, there are 5 Tuesdays in July. July 1st would be the first Tuesday of July, would not normally be a meeting night. I don't know if it's possible to reschedule our normal June 24th board meeting to July 1st. So all that would get pushed back a week. But I'm spitballing because that literally occurred to me about 30 minutes ago that 3 of the trustees will be gone on the 24th, based on the current CML schedule.
Yeah, so we wouldn't even have a quorum if we're gone.
We would be short of a quorum.
Well, so we have to address it. Yeah, that's fine. These things happen. So the suggestion is adding an extra meeting.
Yeah, it would be not having the meeting on the 24th at all, and then just having a meeting on July 1st.
You everyone cool with that?
Having a meeting on July
Left
1st.
meeting's on. Yeah, great,
And
yeah.
then we'll need to confirm that that works, because we do have a public hearing scheduled for the 24th for the Harvest West annexation they previously approved. If we can continue that hearing to the 1st, Aaron, is that?
Well, you continue a hearing by having a quorum present and continuing the hearing.
Can we do that now?
So, no, you can't do it now.
So let's talk about how that works and
Come back with.
and what we can do. I'll sync up with Aaron and Ann.
If we have to have an extra
Soon as we
meeting,
can.
we've got to do what we got to do, but it sounds like if it does work out, we're fine with relocating that meeting.
Okay, we'll work to make sure all that makes sense. That's the only agenda item that's currently scheduled that would be a problem. The other were staff updates about other issues that are not time critical, so. Sorry, that threw me for a loop. I had one other update I wanted to share with you. Write it down.
Can you update us on the pool, just where that whole thing is?
We're moving forward based on the direction we received at the last meeting. We're working on getting a design proposal from BRS, Parker Rinker CCAT, who designed the rec center, and who did our concept design in partnership with Water Technologies. We're waiting for a design proposal to do construction drawings for that project.
And what would a next step be for?
It would be to get into construction drawings based on the concept that we provided previously that we got general support for.
To get it to, yeah.
And then once construction drawings were done, and there will be some feedback through the port committee unless the board wants to see that again prior to it being finalized from a design perspective, but we would intend to design it exactly like we showed you in the concept plan at the last meeting. We could go out to bid as soon as it's ready to go if the board wants to do that.
So does the board need to approve anything else go forward, or that's a done deal? I just can't recall.
You will need to approve an addition to the budget because we didn't budget the full construction drawings of the pool. So we need to get that proposal. We'll bring that back to you, assuming you authorize that design work. We'll make a mid-year adjustment, and then we'll move immediately into construction drawing design. And then at that point, no, the board wouldn't need to look at anything until you're ready to go to bid, unless you just wanted to see it throughout the design. Like I said, we wouldn't make any significant design changes to what was kind of shown and supported from a conceptual standpoint.
Okay, thank you.
With the short-term rentals, do we know when that's getting back on the agenda?
I think that's up to you guys.
Are we done with the? I think the board had some suggestions about reducing the distance between. Am I making this up?
Expanded, or I may have missed a meeting.
Between
I know that we definitely talked about that, some possible changes to the ordinance.
reducing multi-unit,
Allow them to be closer,
Yeah,
yes,
and-
yes.
not single family.
So I think that's largely up to y'all when you want to prioritize that.
Does staff any more work, or are we done with that?
It depends on how far down that rabbit hole you want to go. If there's some very simple changes just in terms of setbacks from existing, we could do that.
Since it was
Did we
brought
not-
up, how's it going?
Did we not approve that?
Yeah.
We haven't done a follow-up, but we did request a follow-up.
Yeah.
Because we rolled it out and we wanted to know how it went. Yeah, and so now we're ready, I think, to do the follow-up of.
To get it on an agenda to talk about it.
How many did we end up getting, basically, are the setbacks too far? Just the procedure, I mean, I'm sure several people have heard feedback from people on how that went, and so I think it's good to incorporate.
And I'll go back. I thought we provided you that update in terms of how many we received, what that application process looked like.
We did.
We only have 12 operating, and we certainly,
No, we did, Tom did a great job on that. I think the board then replied that we wanted to see, did we? Okay.
Yeah, no, it was.
I'll have
because
to go
it
back
was
and confirm.
because
That's
the-
my fault if we missed
The
that.
biggest roadblock to the policy that we set up was that a lot of the numbers were coming in higher density areas. And I think we had a conversation about possibly lowering setbacks
Yeah.
for the problem areas. Because I think that there was one or two higher density developments that were not a majority, but a large number of the applications that were now excluded because of the setbacks that we put across the town. I think that was the.
Yeah, okay, that's what I remember too. So yeah, there was a specific ask to come back, not with an update by Ton, but with a reduced. I guess we'll have to review.
I'll go back and find that meeting. That's possible. I just missed that, so I apologize if that's the case. I don't know if Anne remembers off the top of her head, but.
Yeah, I remember that there was some discussion about reducing setbacks. I don't think there was a discussion on what those setbacks should be reduced to. And we were getting ready, we're going to be opening up the land use code. And we're in July, I believe. We have it all scheduled out, which chapters and sections are handled in which month. I believe short-term rentals. Tom will be taking a look at that section in July. You'll be getting the entire land use code presented to you in, I believe, October. But we're just opening up short-term rentals in July to keep on a schedule. So if you want her to evaluate some setback changes based on what the first year's experience was, we can definitely do that and then bring it to you this fall as part of the overall package.
Are you supportive of that?
Would it also be appropriate to request that we hear what some of the obstacles were for those who didn't apply or didn't get through the process? Because that's a very small portion of what it was existing as short-term rentals. So it'd just be nice to know what hurdles existed for them or what reasons they didn't apply so that we can decide if some of the process needed to be tweaked. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, I get that. That could be a part of Ton's. Okay, so we can go back and listen what if we did direct, there's quite possibly there wasn't any, and then also at worst, yeah, this might be coming back in July. I can answer. A guy has been asking me on email that looks at the townhouses at TPC. So. Okay.
I will follow up and send you all an email with specifics.
Okay. Anything else?
No, nothing else for me tonight.
Anything, clerk? We're good with the interviews and stuff?
Yes.
Okay. Sheriff's office, we're good. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and adjourn the meeting. Did I just, who got to lead up? Terry Smith?
I have nothing, Your Honor.
Sorry, I left you up there.
Thank
Okay.
you.